Chapter 457. You know, it was Xie Renhui who entered the Honglu temple because of you. Jingwan was surprised. Then she thought about it and felt that it was reasonable. The Honglu temple was in charge of foreign guests. Under normal circumstances, it was difficult for them to achieve much. However, when envoys from other countries came or went, the Honglu temple would play a very important role. People who were proficient in the languages of other countries and foreign countries were indispensable. Xie Renhui, from the letter of credence to the reception of the envoys from other countries, and even the friendly diplomatic relations at the end, had picked out the language traps set by some people with ulterior motives more than once. As a result, the Qi Yuan was always in an invincible position. Therefore his contributions were not small. When the envoys left, Emperor Luqingdi was very happy. Then he did not jump 3 times in a row but 5 times in a row. There were also other rewards. Xie Renhui was still not prominent in the entire officialdom. However, no one who entered the officialdom at the same time as him, including his elder brother who was the top scholar. Xie Renhui was born of a concubine, so he thought that he had the blood of a different clan. Even if his official mother did not treat him harshly, he was still a nobody in the Xie clan. But now, although he was far from being valued by the entire clan, his branch would definitely not ignore him. She did not know why he wanted to arrange a marriage for the Luo family. Jingwan asked her question. He didn't say anything specific. Besides, it was Xie Renhui's official mother who asked your mother. Don't you know what kind of person your mother is? Even if other people had a deeper meaning, she would not be able to understand. Madame Luo said bluntly. Madame Zhang was ashamed. Although it was not the first time that her mother-in-law said this, she still blushed in front of her daughter. She stole a glance at Jingwan and found that Jingwan was drinking tea with her head lowered as if she did not hear anything. She then covered her ears and stole a bell. She then covered her ears and stole a bell. She then pulled her handkerchief and pretended to be dumb. If this marriage is successful, it's not a bad thing. There won't be any bad implications. Grandmother and mother can do as you see fit. Jingwan thought for a while and did not ask about this matter anymore. After that, Jingwan bid farewell to Madame Luo and Madame Zhang. When the imperial prince and imperial consort left, everyone in the residence naturally had to send them off respectfully. In the carriage, Jingwan told Li Hongyuan about this matter. Li Hongyuan narrowed his eyes as he looked at Jingwan. His expression was unfathomable. Facing Jingwan's puzzled gaze, he sneered. Jingwan was baffled by his crazy look. What else could it be? Xie Renhui is only in his current situation because of you, the talent scout. As the saying goes, a drop of water should be repaid with a spring. Moreover, this is equivalent to the grace of a new life. Even if he spends his entire life, he won't be able to repay it. When we got married, he brought people to support you. Now he wants to have a marriage alliance with the Luo family and marry your stepsister. What's so strange about that? Don't forget that because of you, your stepsister's reputation has been greatly affected. She has to bear the brunt of the marriage. Otherwise, your mother and the others would not have been unable to find a suitable candidate. What's so strange about him doing such a thing? Jingwan could naturally hear that something was wrong from his words. Then wasn't this jealousy a bit too unreasonable? However, knowing that he was unreasonable, Jingwan naturally did not lower herself to his level. Otherwise, this vinegar jar could turn into a vinegar jar in seconds. If there was more vinegar, it could drown her. Jingwan lazily leaned on him. What he thinks has nothing to do with me. As long as it doesn't have any negative impact on you and the Luo family, I naturally don't care about this kind of thing. Li Hongyuan's expression eased a little. After returning to the prince's residence, they continued to live leisurely. However, the next day there was shocking news from Duke Dinggua's mansion. Even Li Hongyuan was speechless for a long time. It was because old Madame's son, who had been living in seclusion, suddenly walked out of her courtyard and adopted son Yilin, leaving no room for discussion. And the person she adopted was the younger brother of the former Duke Dinggua, a person who died halfway before reaching the age of 20. It should be known that she had never thought of adopting a son for him, but now she adopted a grandson for him. What was even more incredible was that son Yijia was also adopted by son Yilin. That was to say, his biological father became his uncle. As his uncle, his relationship with son Yilin and son Yijia naturally became much weaker. If Duke Dinggua asked son Yijia to do something again, it would be completely untenable. Old Madame's son's move could be said to be cutting the firewood from under the cauldron. She used another way to cut off her relationship with Duke Dingwa's mansion without hurting Sun Yijia and her child. There could only be one word to describe it: ruthless. Jingwan was a little stunned for a time. Sure enough, she didn't make a move, but once she made a move, it was like a thunderbolt. Chapter 458. Old Madame Sun was definitely a qualified official mother. Otherwise, how could the former Duke Ding leave so many concubine children behind? Not only that, but she also allowed them to continue to stay in the Duke's mansion and enjoy the honor of Duke Ding's mansion after the death of the former Duke Ding. It should be known that even if they were brothers in Duke Ding's mansion, it was absolutely different from outside. Naturally, some people were not convinced by this sudden change. Then they were beaten up by old Madame Sunday. These people probably forgot her nature and character because old Madame Sun had been eating vegetarian food and praying to Buddha for a long time and didn't have a strong sense of presence. In fact, old Madame Sun didn't mistreat those concubines' children. It was not for the sake of reputation, nor was it really virtuous and magnanimous. She just didn't care. Because she didn't care, she allowed them to exist. Therefore, at this time she didn't care about reputation. Moreover, after the death of the head of the family, it was normal to separate the concubines' children. No one could blame her for this. Duke Ding wanted to say something, but before he could say anything he was hit by old Madame Sun's cane. Many of his descendants were watching from the side. However, in the face of old Madame Sun's cold eyes, Duke Ding could only tremble and kneel obediently. He swallowed the words of objection that were about to come out of his mouth. Looking at his useless appearance, old Madame Sun's face became colder. Sometimes she wondered if this son and the daughter in the palace had switched genders. If this idiot was half as stupid as his sister, Duke Ding's mansion would be more than this. As for the daughter, only half was left. If she didn't have the desire for power, Duke Ding's mansion wouldn't be like this. When it came to the adoption of Sun Yilin, the happiest person was his eldest brother, Sun Yibin. The joy in his eyes couldn't be suppressed. Old Madame Sun's cane, which was taller than a person, waved again. Judging from the strength, if she hadn't died for a long time, Sun Yibin's leg would have been broken directly. You're worse than a beast. These few cold words seemed to carry the deepest malice. The complacency in Sun Yibin's eyes disappeared completely. His face was pale, his lips trembled, and his legs went soft. He also knelt on the ground. Grandmother, shut up. I don't want to listen to your chatter. It's so annoying. Sun Yibin's face was extremely ugly. If his grandmother's words were spread out, his reputation would be tarnished in a very short time, and he could not wash it clean. More importantly, he could not even think about the position of the heir of Ding General Manor. Not to mention that his father was dissatisfied with him now. Even if his father still supported him as before, it would be difficult for him to get what he wanted under the pressure of his grandmother. Moreover, the relationship between His Majesty and his grandmother seemed to be unusual. He believed that his grandmother could make him lose everything with just one word in front of His Majesty. Sun Yibin's heart was filled with hatred. He couldn't care less about anything else. He only wanted to change the current situation. Old Madame Sun was old and shrewd. She saw his expression and understood it clearly in her heart. She couldn't help sneering and scolding him in her heart. Sure enough, a dog can't change its habit. He never knew how to reflect on himself. Out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind, old Madame Sun turned directly back to her courtyard. As soon as the courtyard door was closed, two completely different worlds were formed inside and outside the wall. The wall, which was not as high as a mountain, was like an insurmountable moat. As for the people outside, without old Madame Sun's permission, those who were kneeling did not dare to get up, and those who were standing did not dare to leave because the head of the family could not leave. The uncle who had been driven out was the best example. They did not want to leave the protection of Ding General Manor. Therefore they were all scheming against each other a few days ago, but now they were all obedient. However, in the whole Ding General Manor, no one told Duchess Ding about the adoption of Sun Yilin and Sun Yijia. She didn't know whether it was because they had simply forgotten her or for some other reason. In fact, in the end, it wasn't that no one wanted to invite the Duchess of Ding out to make trouble for old Madame Sunday. It was well known that the Duchess of Ding cared about Sun Yilin. If she knew that her son was gone, she would really make a scene. However, no matter how much Duchess Ding did, she could be suppressed by old Madame Sun, who stood at the top. At that time, whoever invited Duchess Ding out would definitely be dealt with by old Madame Sunday. After seeing her thunderous means, this group of people naturally did not dare to stroke the tiger's whiskers. After hearing the follow-up, Jingwan couldn't help but sigh. Ah Yuan, do you think that if old Madame Sun had set the overall direction of Duke Dinghua's mansion from the beginning, would the current situation of Duke Dinghua's mansion be completely different? It would indeed be different, but it would be worse than it is now. In such a situation, she still worked hard for Ding General Manor, the Sun family, and even the Empress and Li Hongyi. Now the grass on her grave is deep. Because of her, she can occasionally suppress Ding General Manor. But when she is gone, Ding General Manor has no shackles at all. Moreover, Ding General Manor is a grandfather, but he is still suppressed by his mother. How can he be happy? It's obvious that the things left by old Madame Sun and the people cultivated by her will be abolished by him for various reasons. Can Ding General Manor be better in his hands? Well, her husband was very reasonable. So, old Madame Sun had seen through the situation, so she left Ding General Manor to fend for itself? Or did she really not have a good impression of Ding General Manor, didn't care and didn't want to intervene at all? Probably only old Madame Sun herself could answer this question. Sun Yijia, who received the news, cried hard and kept shouting grandmother. She was not expelled from Ding General Manor, but she basically had nothing to do with Ding General Manor. What she once thought was impossible was achieved so easily. Sun Yijia felt that this was like a dream, but she clearly realized that this was definitely not a dream. Luo Jingbua sat next to her with Sister Xian in his arms. He didn't say anything, but in this way he told her that they would always be by her side and support her. Their family would always be happy. Seeing Sister Xian clumsily trying to wipe away her tears, Sun Yijia's heart softened. She hurriedly wiped away her tears, hugged Sister Xian in her arms and kissed her. Her heart relaxed, but there was also a trace of pain that was hidden very deep. As for Sun Yilin, who was still thousands of miles away, there was no way to know how he would react after learning about this matter. This matter affected not only the people of Ding General Manor. It should be said that everyone related to Ding General Manor was affected. To some extent, it could be said that it was even more serious than the people of Ding General Manor. After all, there were many people in Ding General Manor who were just idlers. In essence, this actually represented old Madame Sun's attitude on certain matters. She had painstakingly cultivated the younger generation for the sake of prosperity, but now the most promising one was sent away. The meaning behind this was simply too obvious. If the old lord of Ding General Manor had such an attitude, how would the people who relied on Ding General Manor feel? It was not that no one went to Ding General Manor to ask to see old Madame Sun, hoping that she could withdraw the order before the matter became a foregone conclusion. Even some elders of the Sun family came forward, hoping to persuade her with emotion and reason. Most of them, old Madame Sun didn't give them any face at all. She didn't even meet them. As for the one or two elders who did meet her, she was also cold and indifferent. She didn't say much. She probably meant one thing: what's wrong? There were people in the Sun family whose seniority was higher than old Madame Sun's, but in the face of such a powerful old Madame Sun, they could only be silent. After all, old Madame Sun was a superior madam, and the patriarch of the Sun family was Ding General Manor. If they really wanted to argue, they might not be able to suppress her with seniority. What's more, she was the mother of the Empress. A mother's identity could really be used to suppress others with filial piety. Even the emperor had to be obedient in front of his mother. The Empress was really nothing. It was human nature to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. The actions of these people, on the contrary, sped up old Madame Sun's action. She didn't choose a good day but directly opened the ancestral hall, worshipped the ancestors and directly changed the family tree. In this way the matter was completely settled. From the beginning to the end, the Empress didn't send anyone to stop this matter, and Prince Kong didn't do anything. Obviously there was no room for recovery. The others also stopped, but it was hard to say what they thought in their hearts. However, very few people knew that the Empress's illness seemed to have worsened, and Prince Kong seemed to be irritable again. However, seeing that Luqingdi was also indifferent, some old officials who knew his temperament faintly felt that Luqingdi was actually happy to see this matter succeed. Many people were affected, more people were gloating, and more people were not affected. Li Hongyuan ordered that the investigation of old Madame Sun's matter could be suspended. Jingwan was somewhat puzzled. but she also seemed to have a sudden realization. What Li Hongyuan cared about now was Jingwan's birthday. On the second day of the second month, the first birthday after becoming a Qinhuang Fei. No matter what, it couldn't be perfunctory. It must be celebrated, and it must be celebrated on a grand scale. The grand celebration that Jin Qinhuang spoke of, could it be an ordinary grand celebration? When Jingwan heard these two words, she subconsciously wanted to refuse. If it wasn't for some taboo, Jingwan didn't doubt that he could make it more grand than the emperor's birthday celebration. But now, even if it didn't reach that level, it definitely wouldn't be that bad. If it was done, it would be flaunting his wealth again and drawing hatred again. Jingwan hesitated, but when she met Li Hongyuan's gaze that seemed to see through everything, and it was also cold, it was obvious that he rejected her idea. Thus, the words that were at the tip of her tongue were swallowed back. Generally, a psychopath wouldn't take her seriously. If he took her seriously, it was simply asking for her life. Therefore, if he really made up his mind, it was best not to go against him. Okay, as long as you're happy. That's right, Yuan, can an E get married? https://11/11807/10319903. Chapter 459. What? You want to marry one of your maids to him? Since 3 years ago, an E basically didn't go out on a mission. He just completely changed to the light. Li Hongyuan's performance was quite straightforward. Anyway, he had a lot of people under his command. Even if it was a secret guard, it didn't have any impact if there was one less capable in E. His wife just wanted someone, how could he not give it to her? With Jiao as a precedent, it didn't matter even if his wife's maids chose husbands from the secret guards. Jingwan laughed, it's not like that. It's just that Yi's heart was moved. Because of his identity, he restrained himself and didn't show it much. When he faced the person he liked, he would still reveal a little bit of himself. Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows slightly. Obviously, he was a little surprised. The secret guards had undergone special training. Their biggest characteristics were strong ability, loyalty, and indifferent feelings. Of course, indifference didn't mean that they had no feelings. It was normal for them to suddenly have some thoughts. The person he likes also likes him. His wife was very good to the maids who served her. If it was purely his people who had thoughts, his wife probably wouldn't have asked him. Therefore, it wasn't unreasonable for the people around him to want to please the mistress. It's Baishao. Baishao is calm and capable. Probably because of Sister He, she's more introverted in personal feelings. I thought that she would probably be the last to understand, or that she would need me to choose a marriage for her. It's best to solve it yourself. Li Hongyuan's tone was a little cold. Jingwan naturally understood what he meant. If he wanted her to worry about them, this man would be narrow-minded again. Maybe he wouldn't treat those maids who were originally afraid of him with disdain. In his heart, he would only be satisfied if she put her mind on him at all times. If she diverted a little attention, he would be very unhappy. Jingwan vaguely knew that several of his close maids seemed to have found men for themselves. They first sent them out and then got married. In the current environment, it was shameless for an innocent girl to find a man for herself. Losing one's chastity before marriage was not tolerated. If it was known by others, she didn't know how much gossip she would have to bear. Those who couldn't bear it well might be forced to death. Jingwan couldn't imagine how wronged Si, Gu and Fu had been at that time. Therefore, to a certain extent, being the maids of the King of Hell was definitely the most miserable among all the high officials and nobles. Therefore, after they got married, Jingwan didn't specially prepare any maids for him. In fact, Li Hongyuan's maids were more to deal with trivial matters. Now that Jingwan's maids were here, naturally, there was no need to arrange another one. Si, Gu and Fu had not appeared in front of people before. Outsiders were used to it, so they didn't notice that Li Hongyuan actually didn't have any close maids. Otherwise, Jingwan would be criticized again. What about the others? Have they been confirmed? Li Hongyuan asked indifferently. Almost. I've already asked the nanny to deal with this matter. The agenda of the 3 letters and 6 rites still has to be carried out. The servants in the mansion don't matter. My guards are all of good background. As for the secret guards, they don't have any status at all. Li Hongyuan reminded her. Good and bad people shouldn't intermarry. If they were chosen, they still had to consider the issue of household registration. Did he still need to say this kind of thing? Even if she didn't notice, wasn't there still the nanny and the others? Jingwan glanced at Li Hongyuan. How much did he dislike the beautiful maidens by her side? After they get married they will still serve by my side. Even if they won't be by my side all the time like before, the nanny has already trained the candidates to replace them. Now they are already learning by their side. Jingwan couldn't help but say. Li Hongyuan glanced at her and naturally understood what she meant. The ones who will replace you now, can they have the deep friendship that you grew up with? In the future? With your husband here you can't count on them. Don't count on them to be the same as the ones now. Jingwan almost had blood on her face. She really couldn't understand. How did a prince in a feudal society develop this kind of clingy wife temperament? If it was in hiding gold, it was possible that the wife was strong and the husband was weak. But this lord, he could kill a bunch of people in minutes. He was so overbearing and powerful that there was no limit to it. This completely didn't conform to the character's attributes. Where did it come from? Although this attribute was annoying, it was also a sweet annoyance. And Jingwan was just curious, so she didn't want to get to the bottom of it. Since they wanted to celebrate Jingwan's birthday, it was natural to give instructions early. As the star of the birthday, there was no reason for her to personally handle this matter. However, the people in Jin Wangfu were all very capable. Now that Jingwan's prestige in the Wangfu had already been established, even without Li Hongyuan, they would still take out 120% of their energy to do it perfectly. What's more, Wang Ye had personally instructed that if it was done well, there would be rewards afterwards. However, if there were any mistakes, they definitely wouldn't have a good fruit to eat. With Gong Momo in charge of the overall situation and controlling the cards, Jingwan continued to be idle until she was moldy. She could only continue to paint, take care of the flowers and plants, and be lovey-dovey with Li Hongyuan. These days it was so leisurely that it made people want to beat them. The Wangfu's invitation was also sent out early. As long as there wasn't a problem with the brain, presumably, they would leave the 2nd of February empty. If they chose to do things on that day, they would consciously advance or postpone it. After all, they couldn't not give face to Jin Wangfu, unless they completely didn't reach this level. The Wangfu of each Wangfu would hold a birthday celebration, so it wasn't surprising to receive an invitation at this time. They just needed to prepare a congratulatory gift and nothing else. The surreal painting that Jingwan painted for Li Hongyuan was finally completed. Perhaps she really spent too much energy on it, but in the end it basically achieved the effect that Jingwan wanted. Although it didn't reach the level of a photograph, it was infinitely close. However, if such a painting was framed with paper, it seemed a little out of place. When Jingwan was thinking about what material to use for the picture frame, someone came to the fu from outside. Zhou Shuang was having a seizure, but it was a difficult labor. It seemed that things weren't going well. Zhou Shuang was married to the son of the Imperial College's chancellor. The Imperial College's chancellor belonged to the more noble kind. Moreover, in the Qiyuan his rank wasn't very high, so it wasn't easy to invite an imperial physician. Moreover, a life was at stake, so they couldn't delay it. They had no choice but to ask Jingwan for help. Jingwan became anxious all of a sudden. Without saying anything, she directly asked Muan to go to the Imperial Hospital and invite the best gynecologist and pediatrician to immediately rush to the Imperial College's chancellor's house. There shouldn't be any delay. Muan naturally knew the details of Jingwan's friends before she got married. He didn't dare to be negligent, so he took out his speed to sneak people to the Wangfu. However, it seemed that God was deliberately against Zhou Shuang. The two gynecologists went to the palace. It was rumored that there seemed to be good news in Emperor Lu Cheng's harem. Muan really didn't know what expression to use. He could go to other places to snatch people, but he didn't dare to go to the palace. Moreover, Lele was already an emperor at this age, but he could still have an imperial concubine pregnant. It was simply an example of the vigor of a dragon and the vigor of a tiger. It was the proof that he was still vigorous despite his old age. Muan had no choice but to rush back to Jinqing Wangfu. Jingwan, who was originally anxious, became gloomy after learning about the situation. Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows and appeased Jingwan's anxiety. Let Gong Jiu go first, at least to ensure that there won't be any accidents. I'll go to the palace. Even if something happened in the palace, Li Hongyuan could also take an imperial physician with him. Jingwan was startled. Logically speaking, her husband would never care about this kind of thing, but now, in the end, it was for her. No matter how unhappy he was because she had ideas about other people, when something really happened he could support her 100% and help her. With a husband like this, what else could she ask for? Yuan, thank you. Li Hongyuan chuckled. This husband will accept it. Remember to prepare a thank you gift when you go back. A word of thank you is far from enough. He gently pinched Jingwan's nape, hinting at something that couldn't be too obvious. Okay, I'll give whatever Yuan says he wants. Li Hongyuan's expression was cold again. I don't usually see you so generous. Chapter 460. On the way to the palace, Li Hongyuan already knew which concubine was pregnant. It was none other than Wei Xianfei, the former Wei's princess Yi Ning. According to the time, it was not the first time she was pregnant, but at some time later the two of them slept together again. It was normal for Wei Xianfei to plot against a child in order to settle down. But Lu Qingdi, who slept with the wrong person at the wrong time and lost face, should be very unhappy. Under normal circumstances he would not sleep with the wrong person for the second time, but Lu Qingdi did. No one believed that it was a coincidence. If there was a second time, there would be a third and fourth time. As for how many times, probably only some people in the Jingshifang and some people in the harem who paid close attention to it knew. For Li Hongyuan, not to mention that Lu Qingdi now had a concubine who was pregnant, even if there were 10 or 100 more he would not care. But it happened to be Wei Xianfei, when Lu Qingdi missed the imperial noble consort deeply. If Wan knew, she would be angry again. Many men, no matter how affectionate they were, did not prevent them from seeking pleasure with other women. Lu Qingdi was probably a typical example. He might feel ashamed and angry at the time, but after that nothing happened. Wei Xianfei was a beauty and she was raised to be delicate. Moreover, the first time she slept with Lu Qingdi she was so wanton. Even if the hymen in her body was still there, she must have tasted the taste of love. She might even have been specially trained by someone. Who would do such a thing to her, a princess of the first wife? According to some of the words and deeds of the former Wei's eldest prince, one could infer a thing or two. Therefore, for a woman like Wei Xianfei, unless it was a man with a firm heart, a man who was not greedy for pleasure, or a man who was not fond of beauty, after tasting her once, it would be difficult for him not to touch her a second time. Therefore, as long as Wei Xianfei had the heart, she did not expect any favor. She just wanted to have sex with a man, which was not too difficult. Li Hongyuan entered the palace and Lu Qingdi was still in the Iha palace. So there was nothing to avoid. When Lu Qingdi learned that Li Hongyuan wanted to see him, he was not only surprised, but also felt somewhat guilty. Because of this, his initial joy could not help but fade a little. He hurriedly asked someone to call him in. Li Hongyuan was the first man to truly move Wei Xianfei's heart. Although it may be because of his excellent and perfect appearance, her heart was truly moved. She had already prepared herself to be a concubine, but in the end she didn't get what she wanted. Especially since the other party had never looked at her directly. It was normal for her to hate him because of love. Under such circumstances, he suddenly stood in front of her. It was also his first time stepping into her palace. She subconsciously placed her hand on her lower abdomen. She suddenly felt the panic of betraying her beloved. She was worried that he would misunderstand. He was worried. However, all these complicated emotions disappeared the moment she saw Li Hongyuan. That man still did not see her. How she was, whether she was pregnant with someone else's child, it had nothing to do with him. The complacency of achieving her goal was gone. Only strong hatred was left. She unconsciously clenched her hand on her lower abdomen. There was also a dull pain in her abdomen, but Wei Xianfei did not feel it at all at this moment. Old Six, why did you come to see me at this time? Lu Qingdi acted like a monarch and a father to cover up the strangeness in his heart. Son congratulates father first. Perhaps in a few months, son will have another younger brother. Although he was a little embarrassed, he was more happy. His concubine's pregnancy was the greatest affirmation of his imperial body. It was good to be old but strong. The longer he sat on the throne, the better. However, Lu Qingdi's good mood did not last long. Because this matter would obviously make his wife unhappy, and Li Hongyuan would inevitably make his father unhappy. Therefore those emotionless eyes stared at Lu Qingdi. Regarding the establishment of the imperial noble consort's altar, can you choose an auspicious date to start construction? This topic was completely unexpected. Lu Qingdi did not react for a while. Logically, this was not an urgent matter. There was no need to ask to see the concubine. Then Li Qingdi suddenly woke up, especially when his son's cold eyes swept over Wei Xianfei's belly. No matter how stupid he was, he should have understood what was going on. His Momo was still wandering in the world. Was she by his side most of the time? Li Qingdi could not help but shiver. Every time before he rolled with Wei Xianfei, it seemed that because he had looked at Momo's portrait for a long time he could not sleep. If Momo happened to be by his side, how sad would she be? Seeing Li Qingdi's stiff body, Li Hongyuan was like an ancient well without ripples. Because of the imperial noble consort, he was able to live again and then get what he wanted. Therefore he wanted to protect her. However, her emotional problems were not within his consideration at all. What kind of entanglement she had with his father, the emperor, had nothing to do with him. Imperial father, this son needs to use the 2 imperial physicians. Please allow it. Because his heart was too weak, Li Qingdi could not wait for his son to leave. He waved his hand, allow. Without asking for the reason. Thank you, father. Son will take his leave. The 2 imperial physicians who pretended to be in the background were still retreating. Li Hongyuan directly turned and left. His behavior, to put it seriously, was offensive. However, in Li Qingdi's eyes, it was his son who was angry. On the day of the emperor's birthday, his son saw how he reacted when he received Momo's portrait. Then he slept with another woman and was conferred the title of imperial concubine. His son must be unhappy now. Li Hongyuan took people out of the palace. He directly ordered people to take the imperial physicians and send them to the imperial college. As for what would happen to the 2 imperial physicians, sorry, but don't expect the living king of hell to care. Li Hongyuan returned to the palace. Jingwan was anxiously waiting for him. When she saw Li Hongyuan, she hurried to greet him. Ah Yuan, how is it? If it were not for her status, she would have rushed over personally. In fact, it was not that she could not go. However, if she went, not only would she not be able to help, but that family would also be busy serving her. That would be purely adding to the trouble. The imperial physicians have sent it over. What could be done had been done. Next they could only wait for the results. Seeing that Jingwan could not sit still, Li Hongyuan's expression was a little gloomy. However, he could not flare up now. He sent people over to report immediately when the results were out. However, they waited for nearly 24 hours. This night, Jingwan did not sleep well. Of course, she was not the only one who did not sleep well. She did not sleep well, so Li Hongyuan naturally followed. His face could not be any darker. Then the news finally came. The child was finally born, but the mother's body was bleeding profusely. She was saved, but her vitality was greatly damaged. It would be impossible for her to recover in a short time. Moreover, she was afraid that she could not give birth again. Moreover, the child was restrained in the mother's body for too long, which was not good. It was not known whether the child could survive. This situation seemed to be a great blessing. Jingwan's heart was still heavy. She asked Nanny Gong to open the storeroom and selected a lot of good medicinal materials to send over. As long as the child could recover, it would be fine. Even if she could not give birth again, she would not let her suffer as long as she was alive. However, the child was in the womb for too long. She was afraid that there would be no amniotic fluid, which would cause hypoxia. In the end, the child would suffer from anoxic cerebral palsy, which would be devastating to Xiangshuang. For Li Hongyuan, giving birth was just a matter. Although it was dangerous, he did not take it seriously. However, after listening to Jingwan's details, his eyes narrowed slightly. For other women, no matter how many of them died, it was not a big deal. But for Wan, Li Hongyuan was thinking about the possibility of not letting Jingwan have a child. When the libation lord received the things sent by Jingwan, he naturally thanked her profusely. Then, seeing so many good things, some people would not be able to see them in their lifetime. Naturally, they could not help but be greedy. They held the things in their hands and did not want to put them down. Seeing this, Nanny Gong was very clear about these things. Naturally, she hinted a few words. Was these things more important? Or was your husband's future more important? You must think clearly. Although Jin Wangye had no power or influence, but to block the future of some people, it was also an easy matter. Nanny Gong looked at Zhou Yingshuang's husband again. Wang Fei Nyang is very concerned about your wife. After all, after Wang Fei Nyang entered the capital, she only made friends with a few girls. If it were not for her status, she would probably visit them in person. Wang Fei Nyang knows that you are a person who values friendship and righteousness. Don't disappoint Wang Fei Nyongyong's expectations. In the future. Her unfinished words were clear to everyone. Nanny Gong took her leave. The Libation Lord's family had different thoughts. However, as long as they had a little brain, they should know what to do. Chapter 461. In reality, Jingwan had indeed suffered a lot. She had toiled for an entire night and then spent the entire day lying in bed listlessly. Her small eyes were like knives, flying towards Li Hongyuan's body. However, a certain person's skin was too thick and his body's defense was too high. Not only was he not affected at all, he even looked refreshed. Jingwan even suspected that he was like a demon who plucked yin to nourish yang. His complexion was unbelievably good, just like that human-shaped medicine that made people's legs go soft. Originally, the maidservants by her side had never had any thoughts about him, but at this time, they couldn't help but blush and quickly scram even further away. Jingwan sometimes really wanted to say that it was a good thing that he had restrained himself outside. Otherwise, who knew how many hearts would have been broken and how many girls would have done shameless things. Sometimes she would feel sweet in her heart, but then she thought about how her waist was about to be broken and her legs were like noodles. Even with her physique, she could only imagine how miserably she had been tormented. Because of this, her heart was filled with despair. Li Hongyuan sat on the bedside and looked at Jingwan, whose entire body was covered by the blanket. Only the top of her head could be seen. He reached out to pull the blanket away, but Jingwan held it tightly and said in a low muffled voice, "Scram, scram as far away as your heart can. This princess doesn't want to see you right now." Li Hongyuan slightly raised his eyebrows and curled his lips into a smile. "Scram as far away as my heart can? But this husband's heart is with Wan Wan." Wan Wan's meaning, are you inviting this husband to scram on top of you? Did he have to be so vulgar? Jingwan almost vomited blood. He was really too inexperienced. When facing this person, whether it was dissing him or flirting with him, she would always lose miserably in the end. If she ever won, it was definitely because the other party had let her win. Moreover, no matter what kind of opening it was, it would always end in a certain color. Probably not many people could cultivate such a skill. Li Hongyuan reached out to pull the quilt on Jingwan's head again, but he still couldn't pull it down. Li Hongyuan wasn't annoyed at all. He held his chin and said calmly, "Look, Wan Wan is still so energetic. Can I continue to do something? After all, she is my wife and I have to take care of her more or less. However, if my wife doesn't need it, then I don't have to worry too much, right?" Jingwan immediately lifted the quilt, revealing her naked body. Her fair skin looked a little pitiful, but it also revealed her boundless lust. Her decadent look caused a certain snake-like beast to become restless again. However, Jingwan was completely like a dead fish. She was listless and did not realize it for a moment. Her gaze was still courting disaster and landed on a certain beast's unspeakable part. "Can you still get hard?" Before she could finish her sentence, Jingwan was slapped in the face. It was the middle of winter and there were several layers of clothes. They were thick to begin with and there was an obvious bulge in that area. Jingwan looked up in shock. "Are you really human?" Li Hongyuan saw it clearly, and he was also quite clear about her unfinished words. He smiled faintly. "Wan Wan, what do you think?" She thought she wanted to die. He was indeed a beast. Li Hongyuan saw the obvious fear on Jingwan's face and couldn't help but laugh. He reached out and stuffed her arms back into the quilt, tucking the quilt under his chin. The pleasure of having intimate relations was all about pleasure. If she was afraid of this matter, what fun would there be? In fact, last night was already about the same. The reason why he had such a reaction was completely because he had a natural reaction to her and he couldn't help it. Li Hongyuan touched her face. "I won't disturb you, but you should eat something before you sleep. Don't harm your body." Jingwan obviously breathed a sigh of relief, and the words "that's good" were clearly written in her eyes. "Do you have something to do today?" Although he usually tidied up very carefully in the prince's residence. "And I still need to make the final arrangements for the imperial noble consort. I'm going to write a memorial and submit it." Jingwan nodded. "Have you already decided on the start date?" "I've already sent people to look at it. It's estimated that imperial father's people will look at the date on that day. However, I'm afraid that someone will make things difficult and the date might be brought forward." Speaking of this, Li Hongyuan's eyes seemed to be covered with black fog. "Brought forward? If it was a good date, someone should look at the earlier date. However, even if the person who made things difficult wanted to bring forward the date, they wouldn't choose a bad date. They wouldn't be able to get past Lu Qingdi. Her mind raced. The date brought forward is the 2nd of the 2nd month? Li Hongyuan nodded slightly. Knowing what he was worried about, Jingwan smiled indifferently. The 2nd of the 2nd month is fine. It's not a big deal. What I'm worried about is whether the time will be a little rushed. It's fine if the location is close to the capital, but if it's far away when the imperial edict is issued, the local government will have to make preparations. If someone makes a move, it might cause resentment among the people. We already know the location. Don't worry, the situation will be under control. However, if they disturb your birthday, it will be unforgivable. It was the first time for Li Hongyuan to celebrate his wife's birthday. If it went wrong, it would arouse Li Hongyuan's anger. Jingwan secretly lit a candle for some people in her heart. Good luck to them. After that, Li Hongyuan watched Jingwan eat something and went to do his own things. Jingwan went back to bed and slept. As Li Hongyuan expected, the start date of the altar was set on the 2nd of the 2nd month. It was only his daughter-in-law's birthday. In Lu Qingdi's eyes, it was naturally not as important as the imperial noble consort. Besides, in his opinion, these two things were not related at all. The imperial edict was sent to various places immediately. Fortunately, the people of the Ministry of Works had already gone to various places and made preparations. Otherwise, it would really be a mess. Originally, although there were rumors among the people that the imperial noble consort was the fairy of the 9th heaven, it had nothing to do with them. Could they let the people have enough to eat and wear? One of the laborers in the family was transferred to do manual labor. This manual labor was outside of the normal manual labor. How could people be happy? However, when they finally heard the news, it was really a pleasant surprise. Although it was a manual labor in name, it turned out that they would be paid. Moreover, it was 3 times the pay. Not only that, they would have 3 meals a day, 2 of which were dry and full. There was also fat meat. For many people, they might not even see a bit of meat in a month. Many people never knew what it felt like to have a full stomach. This was like a pie falling from the sky. Moreover, it was clearly written on the imperial edict. Therefore, they did not have to worry about the government acting one way and doing another. In this way, the people who were originally complaining all rushed forward. After all, many families had more than one able-bodied laborer. Even if they didn't want to be paid, they were very willing to do it based on the daily meals. Unfortunately, this time the people of the government became serious. They didn't need to be fierce. Each family only had one able-bodied laborer and they didn't want him. This time, between brothers, between father and son, they all started to fight for this quota. The people who originally wanted to cause unrest all thought that Li Hongyuan was too cunning. They beat their chests and stamped their feet. Before they were done being angry, they started to sneer when they found out about this situation. Jin Qinhuang caused discord between father and son and brothers. If it was serious, it could even cause someone to die even if there was no such thing. They could also do this kind of thing, so this kind of shit, they didn't believe that Jin Qinhuang could still clean it up. However, these people couldn't laugh for long. However, the next day the government issued another notice. Father and son choose the son, brothers choose the elder. If they schemed against each other because of this matter, once found out, they would be invited to stay in prison for a few days. Moreover, if there was a similar matter in the imperial court in the future, the family would no longer have the chance. Subsequently, several examples were caught in various places. For ordinary people, prison was definitely one of the most taboo places. If they went in, no matter what the reason was, their reputation would be ruined. They would be spurned and unable to raise their heads. Therefore, the effect was very good. Even if they were unconvinced in their hearts at most, they could only talk about it with their mouths and didn't dare to do anything. Lu Qingdi, who had been a little nervous about this matter, breathed a sigh of relief after he learned about the situation in various places. Although it was for the sake of his most beloved woman, he didn't want to be a fatuous emperor. However, Lu Qingdi had mixed feelings about his son, who had presented the memorial and considered the matter thoroughly. His son had always done things beautifully. If it weren't for the fact that he was the heir to the throne, there was no need to even think about it. However, because of his outstanding performance, Lu Qingdi began to feel a taboo, especially when the courtiers kept praising him. He didn't want his 6th brother to have thoughts that he shouldn't have because of this. That's right. Recently there were many people praising Li Hongyuan. His momentum had greatly surpassed that of all the other princes. Now that things had developed to this point, who would believe that there was nothing fishy about it? Li Hongyuan hadn't been to the imperial court all this time, but he knew the details of this matter. Jingwan also knew about it. Jingwan was a little worried because of the momentum. Li Hongyuan didn't care. It's just praising before destroying it. It's not worth mentioning. The method isn't old-fashioned as long as it's useful. Li Hongyuan, who was writing something with his head lowered, looked up at Jingwan. Wanwan, don't worry. We'll deal with it when it comes. It's just a small matter not worth mentioning. It's good that you know it in your heart. I just don't know who is involved this time. This is one trick after another, one after another. It looks like they won't stop until they achieve their goal. It's just those few people. There's nothing to think about. They're just worried that I'll threaten them. It's just that if it's too big, won't the fact that you're the son of a ghost be exposed? Wanwan, you can rest assured about this. Except for Imperial Father and Imperial Concubine Su, everyone else who knew about this matter is dead. I think Imperial Concubine Su also told Li Hongming that if the matter was exposed, Imperial Concubine Su would definitely suffer. Even if the fabricated version was that Imperial Concubine Su died, the Emperor on the throne would be well aware of it. It would be a slap in his face. Imperial Concubine Su doesn't have the guts, and Li Hongming isn't stupid. Of course, if Imperial Father no longer has the ability to punish anyone, it's another matter. But even if it's really exposed, it won't change the final outcome. Since only Imperial Concubine Su and the Emperor know, then how did Prince know? It can't be that they told you, right? Jingwan was curious. It can't be that you were born with it, right? Born with it? That's a good excuse. The implication was that it wasn't the case. But it was obvious that he didn't want to tell her the real reason. Jingwan clicked her tongue and didn't pursue the matter. The Emperor should be summoning you soon, right? Probably, Li Hongyuan said carelessly. Speaking of which, these people are really energetic. They can't even take care of their own affairs, yet they still seize the opportunity to scheme against outsiders. None of them are tired of it. Having power in one's hands did indeed bring a lot of convenience and benefits, but was it really that important? Perhaps because of her previous life, Jingwan didn't understand it as deeply as those people. If they can achieve their goal, no matter how tired they are, they'll probably be happy. Throughout history, not many people who have sat on the throne have lived long lives. It's not that they don't work hard. This is known to all, but it still doesn't stop countless people from wanting that position. They can do anything, they can give up everything, anything. Jingwan was surprised that a certain someone could see through it so clearly. Then Yuan, your husband still wants to live to 100 years old with you. Jingwan was speechless. But when she thought about how a certain someone planned so many things, she knew that he was probably busier than the Emperor. But in her eyes he was idle all day long. So she didn't need to worry about him working hard. In this way she didn't need to worry about him being tired. There was a knock on the door of the study. Master, there's a message from the palace. They want you to go to the morning court tomorrow. Li Hongyuan didn't respond, and the people outside quietly retreated. I thought that the Emperor would summon you alone, but now he wants you to go to the morning court directly. What does he want? He just wants your husband to see with his own eyes how popular your husband is now. He wants to see if your husband will become arrogant because of all the flattery. You don't know who you are, you don't know what you're capable of. You also want to fight for the throne. Jingwan was disgusted by such methods. She might as well have suppressed him directly. If he didn't give him any hope, then he would have made him despair to the very end. Why did he have to use such a method of giving him hope and then ruthlessly smashing him down? This was his favorite son. A father like this could only be sad. Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan. Fortunately, her husband wasn't the kind of person who could be manipulated at will. He also didn't have any feelings for his old man. Going to the morning court on such a cold day was definitely a very torturous thing. Although it was warmer now, it was still far from enough, especially in the morning. Li Hongyuan took his time. He didn't plan to enter the palace early and then wait for the morning court to start. When he entered the court leisurely, the morning court was about to end, and the ministers had almost finished talking about the things to be reported. Lu Qingdi rubbed his temples and cursed in his heart. It should be known that the frequency of his catchphrase in front of Li Hongyuan was getting lower and lower. However, he still had to curse from time to time to feel satisfied. Lu Qingdi wanted to stop him outside, but when he thought about his purpose and thought about the bad temper of this bastard, If he really stopped him outside, he would definitely turn around and leave the palace. Come in. Li Hongyuan, dressed in the imperial robe of a prince, came in unhurriedly. He was handsome and elegant. No one could compare with his appearance. Every time he did this, people would sigh in their hearts. How could there be such a perfect person in the world? However, when he spoke and acted, all the good impressions would be shattered in seconds. It was really heartbreaking. Ken pays respect to Fu Huang. Long live Fu Huang. No need for formalities. Lu Qingdi was a bit weak. Compared to others, his feelings were the deepest. On one hand, he was gratified, and on the other hand, he was distressed. On the other hand, he hoped that he would be outstanding, and on the other hand, he was afraid that he would covet the throne. Lu Qingdi naturally praised his son as well, saying that he did a good job in building the altar for the imperial Gui Fei. As soon as his voice fell, the ministers echoed one after another, praising Li Hongyuan as if he was rare in the heavens, unparalleled on earth, a dragon steed and phoenix chick. It seemed that compared to him, everyone else was trash. First, this time's matter was indeed done well, and it wasn't an empty promise. Second, the money that was distributed all came from Jin Qingwang Fu, but it was under the name of Lu Qing Emperor and the entire imperial court. Maybe they could even get some benefits from it. Third, they raised Jin Qingwang high up. Now the emperor was afraid of these things. Once they were rejected by the emperor, then there was nothing to worry about. Therefore it was only a few words, but it was naturally exaggerated. Seeing that Lu Qingdi's face was obviously gloomy, some people thought that they had achieved their goal and spoke more energetically, but they didn't see their own master pinching people's faces. As the saying goes, going too far is as bad as falling short. Lu Qingdi wasn't a fool. How could he not see the intention of these people? They didn't see that some of the ministers whose expressions had changed slightly didn't care at all. They even twirled their beards from time to time. Could it be that these people were also planted by Jin Qingwang? It was just that these people were in the limelight for a while and forgot themselves. If they continued, they were afraid that Jin Qingwang would be fine, but the others would suffer. Some of the people who held the right to speak hurriedly stood up and cut off their words. They also suppressed Li Hongyuan's reputation. And those people who were talking non-stop just now seemed to have reacted. Cold sweat faintly appeared on their heads. They quickly returned to their ranks, lowered their eyes, and didn't dare to speak again. Li Hongyuan, on the other hand, had the same expression from beginning to end. There wasn't the slightest bit of complacency from being flattered. Lu Qingdi faced Li Hongyuan. Lao Lu, this time's performance was excellent. Jin wants to reward you. What do you want? Imperial Gui Fei is Urchin's birth mother. Doing something is what she should do. There is no need for Fu Huang to reward her. Those are two different things. What do you want? There's no harm in saying it. Fu Huang really wants to reward me? Golden mouth and jade words. Lu Qingdi said so, but his heart was somewhat anxious. He was really afraid that he would ask for an exorbitant price. After all, this evil creature had done things that he couldn't do. So, Fu Huang sent people to various places to find 100 kinds of exotic flowers and herbs for a Ken. Don't alarm the local government and don't disturb the common people. Li Hongyuan said lightly, sounding really impolite. Lu Qingdi's expression was a bit subtle. 100 kinds of flowers and herbs, it really wasn't a big deal. However, to be so considerate of the common people, this son wasn't he? Lu Qingdi's expression didn't change, but his heart was already full of twists and turns. Are you asking for this for your wife? Many people in the capital knew that Jingwan was good at and liked to raise flowers and plants. Even some important officials in the imperial court would fight for the flowers and plants in her hands. Is there anything wrong? Li Hongyuan was very indifferent. It's not that there's anything wrong, but you are a dignified prince. Every time you open your mouth, you talk about your wife. Have you ever considered other people's feelings? Especially the one sitting on the throne, who is your father. As a son, facing his son in front of his mother can cause trouble, let alone in front of his father. That's pure love. What a good for nothing. Not really. You really dote on your wife. Lu Qingdi's words seemed to be mocking him, but also seemed to be happy to see it. Not really. After all, it's what she deserves. I'm a big man, how can I hide it from her? Oh Lao Lu, you sound like this matter is all thanks to your wife. Lu Qingdi was interested. Otherwise, even if you think that it was Urchin's idea, you still need to have some basis. Ken grew up under the sun of heaven. What I ate and wore were the best things. The people I met were either rich or noble. Does Imperial Father think that Aken would know what the lives of ordinary people are like? Father, you should feel lucky that you didn't say something like, why not eat meat paste? If you don't know the suffering of people, how can you know what they need and how can you know what kind of trouble it will cause? No matter how thick-skinned I am, I can't take this kind of credit. After all, it can't withstand scrutiny and can be exposed easily. Li Hongyuan's tone was calm, but there was no lack of sarcasm in his words. However, no one could say that he was wrong. Lu Qingdi was a little embarrassed. Well, he really didn't think of this before. However, even if he didn't think of it, didn't the entire imperial court think of it? In an instant, Lu Qingdi started a conspiracy theory again. I don't know what those people who keep flattering me are thinking. Are they going to jump out and accuse me of relying on women after I take credit for this? Hearing Li Hongyuan's words, Lu Qingdi felt more and more that this was the case. Therefore, he wanted to mess with Li Hongyuan but failed. He even got himself into trouble. It was a typical case of losing the wife and losing the soldiers. Your Highness, your words are too serious. Princess Consort and you are husband and wife. Whether it's her credit or your idea, it's normal to take it on your head. After all, there are some things that a man can do but a woman can't. Elder Lu of the cabinet stood out and said unhurriedly. As soon as he said this, many people agreed with him. Li Hongyuan sneered, I'm sorry. I'm a man. I can't do this kind of thing. Besides, what's the use of this credit? It's for the sake of Princess Consort's mother-in-law who passed away, for the sake of my father and the imperial family's reputation, and for the sake of the people's lives. I don't want to make trouble. At this point, this matter couldn't be forcefully blamed on Li Hongyuan. After all, no matter how much he said, it was actually nonsense. The most important thing was that Lu Qingdi didn't want Li Hongyuan to have too high of a reputation. Luo Aiqing is a good girl raised by your family. The Luo family's upbringing should be a good example. Luo Peishan hurriedly stood out, Your Majesty, you're too kind. It's all. Lu Qingdi waved his hand, Luo Aiqing doesn't need to be so modest. Zhen has seen how Lao Lu's wife is. Don't say that she married into the imperial family. With this evil creature's virtue, it can only be because he is close to ink. Lao Lu's wife is able to keep her heart and constantly admonish this evil creature to restrain himself. This is all because of your family's good upbringing. Come, Jin Qinhuang Fei is virtuous and virtuous. He fiercely praised her, not to be outdone by the praise that some court officials had given to Li Hongyuan. Then he bestowed a lot of things, and the flowers and plants that Li Hongyuan wanted were also granted. Then he gave Luo Peishan a lot of things as a reward. Smart people knew that Lu Qingdi was trying his best to exaggerate Jin Qinhuang Fei's contributions and weaken Jin Qinhuang Fei's reputation. After all, no matter how high a woman's reputation was, it would not stir up a storm in the whirlpool of power. At most, it would be the benefits that the emperor bestowed. Why would they care about that? In fact, this was also the purpose of the other princes' successive calculations. Although the process was different, but in the end it was all the same. Now outsiders only knew that Jin Qinhuang Fei was benevolent, but did not mention Jin Qinhuang Fei at all. However, according to Li Hongyuan's thinking, this was also what he wanted. He really didn't need fame at all. This thing, no matter how high it was, in fact, it couldn't affect who would sit on the throne. Unless it was the kind of person who cared a lot about fame and hoped to become a wise emperor. Otherwise, there really weren't many people who would work hard and be careful for this. As the saying goes, water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. However, unless it was extremely cruel and made the people unable to make a living, there weren't many uprisings by ordinary people. More often it was the ambition of the superior. For women it was different. A good reputation was more beneficial to them, especially when it was praised by the superior. For example, now if someone said that Jingwan wasn't good, a sentence, the emperor said that she was good. You mean the emperor said that he was wrong, could block that person's mouth. So, in the end it was a happy ending. Jingwan listened to the servant girl's retelling of the rumors outside and couldn't help but blush. Ah Yuan, isn't this too much? Those things, weren't you the one who brought it up? That's right, but, then it's fine. Why bother so much? If you're thin-skinned and embarrassed, just pretend that you don't know. Jingwan could only maintain her silence once again. Forget it, there was no need to think about those useless things. The next day was the second day of the second month. The night before, the entire Jin Qinhuang Fu was brightly lit and began to prepare for their mistress's birthday. Although they were busy, they were all full of spirit. However, Jingwan wasn't that busy. She still did what she needed to do. After eating breakfast, she changed and dressed up. The servant girls did their best to dress her up beautifully without losing the dignity of a Qinhuang Fei. After dressing up, she turned in a circle in front of her lord husband. Women dress up for their sweetheart. Jingwan now also had this tendency. However, Jin Qinhuang today seemed to be somewhat lacking in interest. He held the book seriously and didn't look at Jingwan's body. Jingwan expressed that she wasn't happy. Then Li Hongyuan finally gave her a charitable look and faintly opened his mouth. If you don't want the guests to wait for you to be in the room and unable to leave, then be a bit more reserved. Don't seduce this husband. Jingwan almost choked. This psychopath, animal, hooligan. And said that she wasn't reserved? Seduce him? Just let him look at the clothes and makeup, that's all. Only a pervert like him would have a brain full of yellow waste all day. So, it could be said that the living king of hell was completely afraid that she wouldn't be able to control herself, so he picked up the book to read and calm his heart. Jingwan bluntly slapped his face. Then she angrily walked out. Li Hongyuan rolled up the book in his hand and propped his chin up. The corner of his mouth hooked up into a pure smile. So far he was very satisfied with his days. Even if there weren't a few little bugs jumping around in front of him and looking for trouble, but the flaws couldn't obscure the beauty. After sitting for a while, Li Hongyuan got up and casually threw the book in his hand and walked out. Finding Jingwan, he took her hand. Wanwan's birthday is today. How about looking at the birthday gift this husband has prepared? Sure. Although Li Hongyuan had given her too many things, she was still looking forward to her birthday gift. Giving a gift was naturally to cater to her preferences. The things that Jingwan liked were really simple and not simple at the same time. From Jingwan's point of view, her husband must have gotten her some exotic flowers and herbs from somewhere. Jingwan guessed wrong this time. Following Li Hongyuan to a courtyard at the back, a cat walked elegantly towards Jingwan and the others. It wasn't afraid of strangers at all. It even squatted in front of Jingwan and meowed. Although it was pure black, it was small and looked chubby. One of its eyes was blue and the other was purple. It looked elegant and noble, but its size was unbelievably cute. Jingwan, who had a soft spot for fur, couldn't help but feel that it was adorable. She bent down and wanted to pick it up. Li Hongyuan used a little strength and pulled Jingwan back. What did this husband say? Wanwan seems to have ignored it. Jingwan was a little stunned for a moment. What and what? Then she finally remembered. So, even though you've given it to me, I can only look at it and can't touch it? Li Hongyuan chuckled. His smile was like a spring breeze, but the words that followed were especially cruel. If you hug it, this prince will get someone to make it into fertilizer. Wanwan, think carefully. Since you've given it to me but won't let me touch it, you might as well not give it to me, Jingwan complained. This man was simply making trouble for no reason. Since that's the case, this husband will immediately send it away. Send it to be used as fertilizer. Jingwan gritted her teeth. She wanted to bite this bastard to death. Jingwan felt that she would probably have an unlucky year. On the day of her birthday, she had only opened her eyes for a short while, and she had already been angered by her husband twice. Jingwan could only look at the little kitten in front of her. A certain perverted psychopath could do what he said. She'd better not act rashly and let the little fellow lose its life in vain. However, this little fellow had obviously gone through strict training. It was the first time it saw Jingwan. It seemed to be very close and attached to her, but it didn't directly pounce on Jingwan. It was obvious that it wanted to please Jingwan, and it was also in line with the idea of plotting against the king of hell. Li Hongyuan held Jingwan's hand and continued to move forward. Although he had expected that he would give her more than just a kitten, Jingwan knew that someone must have spent a lot of manpower, material resources, and time on this. There were common cats and dogs of various breeds. Although they were all cubs, they were of different sizes. Some were slim, some were round, some were lively, and some were cute. Then there were lions, leopards, mountain leopards, foxes, deer, and so on. In short, cute and beautiful animals could be found here. What surprised Jingwan the most was a snow-white fox. There was a kind of fox in the snow mountains in the north. It was snow-white and had a strange fragrance. In the valley of the summer palace, someone had mentioned this kind of fox. Now it was actually in front of her. According to Jingwan's knowledge, the population of the fox was very small, and it was even more difficult to catch. It lived in the north, in the cold areas, deep in the mountains and forests, and was covered by snow all year round. It could be said that there was no such fox in the Qiyuan, and it was extremely precious. Jingwan couldn't help but touch its fur again and again. It was soft and smooth and the touch was really admirable. At this time, Li Hongyuan didn't refuse, but when Jingwan completely ignored him he said, Wan, if I use this white fur to make a collar for you, it should be very beautiful, don't you think? Moreover, it is said that the fox's fur will still have a strange fragrance after a few years after its death. It is its good fortune to give it to you. When Li Hongyuan said the first sentence, Jingwan retracted her hand. Damn this narrow-minded man. In addition to these, did Yuan prepare any other gifts for me? Li Hongyuan looked at her quietly for a moment. Wan, for a little beast, you scolded me in your heart and changed the topic with a seductive smile. This kind of beast, I think it really shouldn't be kept alive. Jingwan felt that maybe she should be mentally prepared for death. https://11/11807/103422228. Chapter 462. Jingwan felt that she should be mentally prepared to die. Therefore it was not a good thing to have a husband who seemed to be able to see through everything. Yuan, if you kill this little fox I will be sad. Can you bear to do that? Jingwan sent a tearful emoji. Then Wan, do you have the heart to make your husband sad because of a little bastard? Li Hongyuan asked quietly. This is not comparable at all. It was clearly you, a man made of vinegar, who was narrow-minded. Of course it is not comparable. After all, I am your husband. What about it? Li Hongyuan chuckled. Jingwan inexplicably read the sadness in his expression. It was as if the person in front of him was a scumbag woman who could put a beast in front of him. It was as if he wanted to dig out his heart for her, but she did not cherish it. Jingwan was burdened with a sense of guilt. Li Hongyuan, you are good. You win. Sister admits defeat. Jingwan reached out to pull Li Hongyuan's face. Fine. In the future I will only look at these little things. I will not touch or hug them. I will only touch, hug and kiss you. Is that enough? Why don't you just fall into a vat of vinegar and drown to death? How shameless. Her eyebrows curved into a smile. Li Hongyuan held Jingwan's hand and took it away from his face. He approached her, lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. Wan, do you think your husband will be stupid enough to drink vinegar? Before I die of vinegar I will definitely kill the person who made me jealous first, and then I will take you with me. You are my person in life and you are my soul in death. Even if you are a few years younger than me, don't expect to die before me in this life. Do you understand? His warm breath sprayed on Jingwan's face. The king of hell was also crazy at this time. However, Jingwan was not afraid at all. She reached out and wrapped her arms around her husband's waist. She raised her head slightly and closed her eyes. They could clearly feel each other's eyelashes. I will remember Yuan's words. Yuan, don't forget it. I'll use the years to prove it. No matter how much he said, it was all just empty words. As for the eyesore fragrant fox, it was quickly carried away by a discerning servant. They had clearly come to see the gifts, but in the end the two of them were so intimately hugging each other. The maidservants expressed that they had seen this scene many times and believed that this was the norm between husband and wife. They were worried that they would not be happy after getting married. Master, can't you restrain yourself a little and avoid taboo a little? So to say, Jingwan still did not realize how much dog food she had spread to her man, and how much dog food she had abused. Of course, those who were forced to eat dog food were not all choked. There were also those who learned from it. For example, an who had been transferred to the head of the imperial bodyguards, could not be called an now. However, he had two identities, so now he could only use the name on the surface. Imperial bodyguard Qian paid attention to the interaction between the two masters. Of course, he could not always stare at them. Otherwise, if Wang Ye found out, he reckoned that he would dig out his eyeballs. Some things, with a glance, it was enough to roughly remember it. Then he looked at his future wife. She was calm and capable, her temperament was gentle, and she was also a beauty. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that he had profited greatly. As a shadow guard, he had thoughts about Wang Fei's maidservant. He was already prepared to see the other party marry someone else. He did not think that the road would take a turn and completely turn around. He was not punished and the marriage was set. It was simply like a dream. He ruthlessly pinched himself, it hurt. Then the head of the imperial bodyguards of Jin Wangfu, who did not smile, laughed until he became a fool. The future wife had stayed by Wang Fei's side for a long time, so she must have been deeply affected. Therefore he was already prepared to guard his wife for a lifetime. Speaking of which, as long as one had thoughts about Wang Fei's maidservant, they should have this kind of awareness. Now they solemnly vowed, but in the future if they could not do it, they would certainly not have a good fruit to eat. According to Wang Fei's character, she might not directly do anything, but if she only frowned and looked at them coldly, Wang Ye would absolutely be able to tidy them up. Thinking carefully, even if he only guarded his wife, it seemed that there was nothing bad about it. Moreover, Wang Ye could guard her, so why couldn't they? The temptations that Wang Ye faced were as many as the sea compared to them. Originally, everyone was the same, but in the end, as the boss, and he actually wanted his wife and children to warm the Kong. The brothers were definitely dissatisfied. Now, seeing him looking at his future wife with a foolish expression, each and every one of them unobtrusively used their elbows, scabbards, and even twigs and small stones to greet his waist, let him show off. Imperial bodyguard Qian was attacked, but he only turned his head to take a glance and did not take it seriously. He knew what kind of mentality these brothers had. He was a great person and was magnanimous. Moreover, if the commotion was big and alerted master, he was afraid that he would not be able to bear the consequences. In fact, although these people envied an E, this kind of feeling wasn't strong. They wouldn't try to hook up with the people around the princess consort just because of an E. If they had the same fate as an E, it would naturally be the best. If they didn't, they wouldn't force it. Their attitude had always been very upright and they knew what they should do. Suddenly, a mournful cat's cry came from the direction of the courtyard door, breaking this tranquil beauty. Li Hongyuan's face did not change, but the people next to him clearly felt the coldness. Speaking of which, who was so bold in the Wangfu to do such a thing? Jingwan pulled Li Hongyuan's hand. Let's go and have a look? No need. Li Hongyuan did not move, but in a moment Muan had already come in with people. Seeing them, Jingwan couldn't help laughing. Yu Yao, you came so early? Cousin-law. The little girl's face was a little uncomfortable, as if she had done something wrong, especially when she secretly raised her eyes to look at Li Hongyuan. What happened just now was most likely her masterpiece. Yu Yao, what's wrong? Jingwan asked with a smile. Cousin-in-law, when I came in just now I saw your cat. It was sitting there obediently, so I reached out to hold it, but it didn't let me. I was so anxious that I accidentally grabbed its fur. It struggled too hard, so... Yu Yao slowly raised a handful of black fur in her hand. No wonder it cried so miserably. Looking at the fur, Jingwan was sure that it was the little cutie she saw when she came in just now. She felt a little sorry for the little guy. It's okay. You believe that Yu Yao didn't do it on purpose, right? Yu Yao hurriedly nodded. I really didn't do it on purpose. Jingwan reached out to touch her head to comfort her. She turned around. Muan, ask people to guard the courtyard door. Don't let the little guys run out again. Also, inform the servants in the courtyard to capture all the animals after we leave. There are so many guests in the mansion today, so don't offend them. Most importantly, there would definitely be a lot of children coming. They liked small animals, but not everyone knew how to cherish them. Sometimes children were naive and cruel, and they didn't think that it was wrong to abuse those animals. In fact, in the eyes of those high officials and nobles, they were just small pets and weren't worth anything. Jingwan didn't want such a thing to happen right under her nose. Some reasons couldn't be reasoned with, so she could only take precautions herself. Yes. Muan responded and hurriedly went to do it. This place could be considered a small rare beasts garden. Because it was found by Li Hongyuan to give to Jingwan, naturally there couldn't be any mistakes. Therefore, at least one person was taking care of each little guy, and it could be a professional. When Li Hongyuan and Jingwan came, they had already been sent away. Because their presence would definitely make the prince, who had brought his wife, unhappy. Therefore, the number of people in the rare beasts garden was definitely much more than expected. Your Highness, why don't you go to the front yard first and I'll show Yu Yao around? Jingwan said. Li Hongyuan glanced at Yu Yao. His good mood and good atmosphere had already been ruined. Could it be that he still had to accompany a little girl? Therefore there was really no need to stay here. He nodded and directly left. Yu Yao stood beside Jingwan and made a face at Li Hongyuan's back. Cousin-in-law, cousin has always been so fierce. I think you're the only one who can stand him. If it were me, I wouldn't care about him. Jingwan couldn't help laughing. Your cousin is treating outsiders, but he is very nice to me. Moreover, your cousin is at most a little cold. How is he fierce? He is such a handsome man. Of course, these were just thoughts in her mind. Jingwan took Yu Yao's hand and began to walk around. Yao, why are you alone? Where are your parents? When Great Elder Princess and Prince Consort Jiang came, there was no reason for the people outside not to inform them. Sometimes children could not be restrained and ran fast, so they were not a threat and were let in. They are at home. I don't know when they will go out, so I came here first with them. Yao giggled. Cousin-in-law, when will your parents come? In Great Elder Princess's mansion, there were not many people close to her because of her position. As for Yu Yao, she was somewhat similar to her mother in nature. She was proud and casual. She was naturally close to those she liked. Other than that, blood relations could not make them close. As for the 6th Miss and the 7th Miss of the Luo family, Yu Yao was willing to pay attention to them at first, perhaps because of Jingwan. Later they really played together. I'm afraid they have to wait a little longer. Yu Yao was a little depressed, but in a moment she became happy again. Cousin-in-law, why are there so many small animals in your mansion? What are they? I haven't seen many of them. They all look so cute. Leaning on the edge of the specially made exquisite and beautiful fence, Lin Mingya's eyes were shining. She couldn't wait to go up, hold them all in her arms and give them a big hug. It's not my birthday. Your cousin specially came to find me. Although she was facing a little girl, Jingwan wanted to show off. After she finished speaking, she realized it and secretly despised herself. It's my cousin's birthday gift to you. Yu Yao's little face fell again. If it were a little rabbit, its ears would have drooped. Yao, you like it? Then I'll give you 2, okay? Can I? The rabbit's ears should have stood up again. The child's face was really childish. The weather in June really changed very quickly. But it's my cousin's gift to you. Isn't it a little inappropriate? Yu Yao was a little hesitant. Her mother said that a woman, as long as it was a gift from her husband, she could not easily ask for it, even if she was the owner. It was not as simple as a beloved thing. In fact, Yu Yao did not understand it very well, but it did not prevent her from listening to her mother's words. As for why Great Elder Princess said such words to her daughter, well, it was purely setting an example. Jingwan understood in her heart. As the youngest daughter of Great Elder Princess, Yu Yao was doted on. Perhaps she was a little spoiled, but in general she was actually taught very well by Great Elder Princess. Perhaps it was because the former daughter disappointed Great Elder Princess, so she devoted more effort to the younger daughter. It doesn't matter. Cousin-in-law, there are many more. But after Yu Yao takes them back, you must take good care of them. Even if you don't like them in the future, don't throw them away. Send them back to me, okay? Yu Yao promised and then began to choose the beloved pets to take back with starry eyes. Speaking of which, there were many cats and dogs in Great Elder Princess's mansion, but most of them were relatively common breeds. After all, Yu Yao was just a little girl. In the capital city, even if there were people who raised rare birds for high officials and nobles to enjoy, Yu Yao had never seen them. At this moment, when she saw all kinds of animals, she asked Jingwan what they were one by one. Jingwan answered patiently and thought in her heart that in many aspects, she had more advantages than in her previous life. For example, there were all kinds of strange and magical animals in the natural world. Even very young children could see them. Even if they could not see them in real life, they could learn about them from TV and the internet. But now, even the rich might not see many of them in their lives. Yu Yao's understanding of these animals mostly came from books. Now she combined the images in the words with the reality, and she was amazed again and again. However, looking at these little guys, she doubted whether they were really fierce, powerful, and even man-eating beasts. Although cousin-in-law said that these were all cubs and were not aggressive, was there such a big gap between adults and cubs? Xiao Yu Yao's heart began to stir. She wanted to see their adult bodies. Cousin-in-law, can you give me a lion cub and a tiger cub? Jingwan blinked. Shouldn't girls like cats and dogs? Yu Yao, lions and tigers only look very cute now. In the future, when they grow up, they will be completely different. I know. I just want to see how fierce they are when they grow up. Then you can come to see them when they grow up. But I want to see them grow up. Cousin-in-law, can't you give them to me? That's not it. Yeah, it's like this. If it's a kitten or a puppy, I can give it to you directly. But lions and tigers are too dangerous. So, I have to ask your mother first and she agrees before I can give it to you. Jingwan looked at Yu Yao. Could it be that this little girl actually had a valiant heart? Yu Yao was obedient and did not make a scene. Yu Yao also saw the fragrant fox and was pleasantly surprised for a while. She lovingly stroked it and her whole body exuded an aura of liking. The fox was very rare. The energy spent on this fox might be more than that of other animals. Therefore she was afraid that she could not give it away. Of course, it was not because it was precious that she did not want to give it away, but because she could not let down the man who gave it to her. Jingwan thought about how to refuse Yu Yao without making her sad. After that, even when she saw other little guys, Yu Yao kept holding it. Until, Princess, old Madame Luo, young Madam, Miss and young Master are here. They are finally here. Yu Yao was about to put down the fox. She turned her head and was a little reluctant. In the end she put it down. Jingwan gently raised her eyebrows. Did she not intend to take it at all? Yu Yao, you don't want it? Jingwan was purely curious about Yu Yao's thoughts. She did not intend to not give it to her and deliberately provoked her. I want it, but there is only one. If I take it away, won't my cousin-in-law lose it? Mother said that no matter what it is, if you like it, you can't take it away from others. Yu Yao was like a little adult, serious. Indeed, there was more than one tiger and lion before. Yu Yao is really a good child. Jingwan touched her head. This fox, your cousin-in-law really can't give it to you. Your cousin found it with great difficulty. Well, if your mother agrees, I will give you 2 little lions and 2 little tigers, okay? Thank you, cousin-in-law. Yu Yao nodded with a smile. Then cousin-in-law, can I take one to the front to play now? Didn't you say that they are still young and have been trained so they won't hurt people? I will take good care of them. Looking at Yu Yao's expectant little eyes, Jingwan hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed. Yu Yao took a little lion cub and happily went to find her playmates. Jingwan asked someone to find a person to take care of the little lion cub. It turned out to be a delicate young boy who looked at most 13 years old. Standing in front of Jingwan, he was a little reserved. Jingwan nodded slightly. I shall take him there and keep an eye on Yu Yao. Don't let the little tiger cub hurt people. The place was prepared for children to play. After that, it would basically be their world and there might be some women. Although it was an outsider, it was not a big deal for a young boy to be watched by someone. Yes, Your Highness. Bai Shao understood tacitly. On the other side, Jingwan also went to meet the Luo family who had been let in. Madame Luo led a group of people to greet Jingwan. Although it was her birthday because she was still young, there was naturally no birthday greetings. If a group of lineal elders really birthday greetings, it would purely be a waste of her life. However, because of her status, a few auspicious words were still necessary. After the formalities were over, Jingwan hurried forward to help Madame Luo up. Grandmother. Then she called them one by one and said with a smile, I was wondering when you would come over. Now is the right time. I just wanted to come over early to see if I could help. There are only 2 people in the prince's mansion, you and the prince, and I didn't see you call anyone from the Internal Affairs Department. Madame Luo said, there are more than enough people in the prince's mansion, so we didn't ask for anyone from the Internal Affairs Department. But when we entertain the guests later, we may have to trouble you to help us entertain the madams of each mansion. Of course, when a married daughter had something to do in the family, if there were no elders, it was normal for the maternal family to help. Even if the elders and brothers were there was nothing wrong with the maternal family helping the daughter. In the royal family, it was naturally a little special. When the princes came of age, they would be sent out one by one. Naturally, they couldn't rely on their parents to take care of things. Among the brothers, they were also of extremely noble status. At most, they would greet other brothers or uncles in the royal family. There was no reason for them to help other guests. Therefore, most people could only choose people from the Internal Affairs Department. If they wanted the princess's maternal family to help, they had to be presentable and presentable. Obviously, there was no problem at all with the Luo family. According to Madame Luo's status, it was enough to entertain those old princesses. After the Luo family came to visit, there would be people coming one after another. At this time, there was a need to pay attention to who came first. For Jingwan, it wasn't the first time she had met people like this, so she was able to handle it with ease. After all, she only needed to greet most of the people and get someone to lead them to the flower pavilion or garden. She didn't need to care about them anymore. These people, whether they were old, young, they could find their own place to go. Socializing was almost an instinct for these people, and those who needed her company were a minority. There were also some who didn't even need Jingwan to greet them personally. She just needed to send a maidservant or a nanny. Li Hongyuan's side was even simpler. Most people were still in the yamen and it was not time to wait for him to come. Besides, even if they came, Li Hongyuan just sat there without moving. His brothers and relatives of the royal family didn't go to greet him, so no one could do anything to him. Even if they were unhappy, they could only hold it in. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that this was the first time that Li Hongyuan personally welcomed a guest. Jin Wangfu had been established for several years, but it had never done anything. The first time was when Li Hongyuan got married. At that time, there were many people who helped him to entertain the guests. What he needed to do was to go through the wedding agenda, and then drink some wine during the banquet. Other than that, he didn't care about anything else. However, Li Hongyuan gave face to Jingwan today. Those who needed to be personally welcomed, he went. Because of this, those who saw him, including his brothers who came relatively early, were all flattered. Some were even frightened. That scene was really a bit funny. Jingwan originally just casually asked about the situation here. When she learned about this situation, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Each and every one of them was really used to being abused by the living king of hell. The living king of hell just did something that normal people would do, but the reaction was so big. Of course, no one would care about this kind of thing. People like Jingwan were just watching the fun. After the more crowded wave of guests, Jingwan also sat down. The people present, other than those in the imperial palace, were the most distinguished group of people in the entire Qiyuan. They carried a decent smile and said decent words. Whether it was drinking tea or occasionally eating something, they were all elegant. Their words and actions were the best examples. These people might be used to it and didn't feel that there was any problem. However, in the eyes of outsiders, especially those who were more lively, just looking at them would make them feel tired and flustered. Jingwan, as the host, from time to time took the opportunity to entertain the guests. She got up and walked around, and she adapted well. This was the first time Jingwan held a birthday banquet in the Prince Yu's mansion. Naturally, she wanted to make it perfect. From the tea and snacks, she thought about the tastes of these people and what they didn't eat. As for the others, from the elderly to the children who were crying piteously for food, she made special preparations for them. Even though Jingwan was now the princess, she couldn't be influenced by the concept of hierarchy. Obviously, she was more considerate of others. Even if she didn't personally prepare anything for today's banquet, she would give orders when she thought of something. In particular, the entire Prince Yu's mansion was arranged with people everywhere. It was absolutely impossible for anyone to cheat someone to do something in a certain place. In this way, even if someone tried to nitpick at a bone in an egg, they could only pick out some minor flaws at most. Even if they didn't say anything, many people were sure of Miss Luo's upbringing in their hearts. Regardless of whether the men would like such a woman, these women, especially those who were of a certain age, liked her very much. Nowadays, many marriages belonged to the same sex. Mothers-in-law liked their daughters-in-law and fathers-in-law liked their son-in-law. If they liked their daughters-in-law, they would make the final decision. As for their children's opinions, whether they liked them or not and what they liked were ignored. When they were talking happily, a maid in the mansion hurried in and said, "Your Highness, young Master Wengzhu of Great Elder Princess's mansion is fighting with the second young master of Prince Kang's mansion and the heir of Prince Gong's mansion." Before Jingwan did anything, Great Elder Princess, the concubine of Prince Kong, and the concubine of Princess Gong changed their faces. No matter what the reason was, Yu Yao was an elder or a girl and those young masters were juniors or boys. From this point of view, the latter was in the wrong. Looking at Great Elder Princess's gloomy face, the concubine of Prince Kong and the concubine of Princess Gong, who was used to being arrogant, couldn't help complaining in her heart, let alone the concubine of Prince Kong. In front of a group of concubines and princesses, she could only pretend to be the background. Prince Kong didn't have a concubine, but he had to send a kind of child to Prince Jin's mansion, so she could only bear it. After she came, naturally she was extremely embarrassed. The two concubines hurriedly apologized to Great Elder Princess. Great Elder Princess ignored them and took Jingwan to the place where the accident happened. Great Elder Princess knew what her daughter was like. After all, she was already 10 years old, so she was not a little girl. Most of the time she thought that she was an adult and disdained to argue with children. She thought that she had good etiquette and was a little lady. If there was no reason, how could she fight with her juniors? When they rushed over, although the fight had been pulled apart, the scene was still chaotic and the crying was incessant. Jingwan found that her younger brothers and sisters were probably involved in the fight, and there seemed to be more than 2 young masters from the prince's mansion. Yu Yao didn't cry, but her hair and clothes were a little messy. She lowered her head and hugged the bloody and powerless little tiger in her arms. Her heart couldn't help but skip a few beats. When they saw the adults coming, they seemed to see their backbone and stepped forward to complain. "Stand still. It's improper." Great Elder Princess's tone was not heavy, but they all became obedient. Great Elder Princess didn't rush to protect her children, nor did she go forward to comfort them. Instead, she glanced at Jingwan. Obviously, she wanted to let Jingwan deal with it. After all, this was Prince Jin's mansion and Jingwan was her adopted daughter. If it were in other mansions, it wouldn't be like this. Jingwan understood and said, "Go and ask the doctor to come here." "Baishao, what's going on? Tell me." Baishao stepped forward and squatted. "Your Highness, it's like this. Master Wang and the 2 girls of the Luo family were playing with the little tiger and feeding it. The second young master of Prince Kang's mansion and the heir of Prince Gong's mansion also wanted it, but Master Wang refused to give it to them. They quarreled with each other and the matter was temporarily settled. But not long after, the second young master and the heir of Prince Gong's mansion gathered the 2 young masters of their mansions and the 2 commanderies' mansions. They snatched the little tiger and threw it to the ground hard. If it didn't fall to death, they picked it up and smashed it to the ground. While smashing it, the heir of Prince Gong said, "What I can't get, no one else can't get." Because there were so many people and the little tiger was surrounded in the middle, we didn't dare to force forward for fear of hurting the young masters. Finally, the little tiger was thrown to the feet of Master Wang by the heir of Prince Gong's mansion. Its head was covered with blood and it was dying. Master Wang was so anxious that he rushed up and fought with the heir of Prince Gong. Later, Master Wang bit the heir of Prince Gong's mansion hard. The heir of Prince Gong asked the second young master for help, but the second young master pulled Master Wang's hair. The 2 girls of the Luo family saw that Master Wang was bullied, so they came forward to help, and then the other young masters came forward to help. Leaving aside the details, the cause and effect were already very clear. However, Baishao did mention some details, but these details were all about princely heir of Prince Gong. Great Elder Princess glanced coldly at the Princess Consort. The Princess Consort's face turned blue and white. She did notice Great Elder Princess's gaze, but she pretended not to see it and stepped forward aggressively. "You bitch, how dare you slander princely heir of Prince Gong?" She raised her hand and was about to slap her. However, Baishao was a martial artist, so how could she be easily slapped? Moreover, she didn't talk nonsense. If she was slapped, she didn't care, but her master would be disgraced. Therefore, she took a step back without hesitation. The Princess Consort's face turned darker when she failed to slap Baishao. "How dare you dodge?" She slapped Baishao again. Qin, Great Elder Princess's face was cold. She was used to being arrogant. Except for Emperor Lu Qing, no one could make her lower her head. This niece-in-law dared to deliberately ignore her. Her son did something wrong, but she didn't discipline him and even dared to be fierce. How could she not be angry? Slander? How dare she, a maid, say slander in front of so many people? Do you think everyone is blind? You have taught such a cruel and domineering son. You're not a good person either. The Princess Consort didn't dare to slap Baishao again. She was so impolitely reprimanded by Great Elder Princess in front of so many people. Her face turned red and her nails almost dug into the flesh of her palms. She was even more resentful in her heart and cursed Great Elder Princess in all kinds of ways. Great Elder Princess sneered. She knew very well what the Princess Consort was thinking. Some people were like this and never knew how to reflect on themselves. You should also have a good talk with the Princess Consort. One by one, tell her clearly and in detail. So many children were involved in this group fight. As long as they weren't blind, they should know what the cause was. As a servant from the prince's mansion, although his master was also a prince, he didn't have the slightest bit of power, nor was he favored by the emperor. His little master was forcibly dragged away by the prince's heir, and together they made a big mistake and offended Great Elder Princess. It was reasonable to say that they should be on the side of the Gong Prince's heir. After all, the Gong Prince had power in his hands and might be able to ascend to the throne. However, there were too many people who saw it. It should be known that in addition to those who were involved, there were more bystanders. They were the children of other families and even some adults and servants. It was also easy for Great Elder Princess to punish a servant from another family. Therefore it was impossible to completely side with the Gong prince's heir, and half side would offend both sides. It was better to put all the blame on the Gong prince's heir, and get his little master out of trouble. Therefore these people who could serve their little master closely were not idiots. Their minds turned at lightning speed and they had already made a decision. Therefore they all talked at once about the matter. Regarding the details, you add a few sentences, I add a few sentences. In any case, the one who made the biggest mistake was the Gong Qin prince's heir apparent, followed by Prince Kang's second son, and the rest were not wrong. The princess consort was trembling with anger and fell into a situation of isolation and helplessness. However, no one sympathized with her. Even the servants who served the princely heir of the prince of the Gong mansion were trembling at this time and almost couldn't stand, because they were very clear about what they would face. Gong Jiu rushed over and checked a group of little children. They were all small bruises and would be fine after applying some medicine. Jingwan nodded. Bai Shao, take them to freshen up, apply some medicine and change their clothes. Qing Zhu, find out which family these children are from, inform their elders one by one and explain the matter clearly. The two nodded and acted separately. The concubine of Prince Kong also dragged the second son of the Gong mansion and took him to freshen up in person. It was obvious that Great Elder Princess was angry. If they stayed now, they had to resolve her resentment and might add fuel to the fire. They'd better leave quickly and talk about it later. But Yu Yao stood still and refused to let go of the tiger cub that Gong Jiu confirmed to be dead. Great Elder Princess finally stepped forward. Yu Yao looked up and tears fell down. Mother, the tiger cub is dead. It's dead. Cousin-in-law promised to give it to me as long as you agreed. I promised to take good care of it, but now it's dead. It's dead. Mother, Great Elder Princess had never seen Yu Yao so sad, so she was naturally distressed and hurriedly wiped her tears. Don't cry, Yu Yao. I'll ask your uncle to uphold justice for you. Yu Yao had more than one uncle, but everyone knew who Great Elder Princess was talking about. Princess Gong, who also felt distressed for her son and spoke ill of the person who wanted to take her son to freshen up, heard her words, but the resentment in her heart turned into fear. Needless to say, she knew the result of this matter in front of her father. Even if her son was bitten and bled and was seriously injured, the final result could not be changed. She had planned to leave with her son, but at this moment she had to suppress such an idea. The current plan was to find a way to appease Great Elder Princess, as long as it was not in front of her father. And I was wrong just now. I was also angry. As she said, she pulled her son over and slapped him on the back of his head. You bastard, who allowed you to rob your aunt's things? It's just a beast. If you want it, why can't your father and I give it to you? Hurry up and apologize to your aunt. She said that she was apologizing, but the meaning of her words was more and more infuriating. Jingwan really wondered if there was something wrong with her IQ, or if she was just pointing at the mulberry tree and scolding the locust tree. Moreover, did she even realize what her son had done wrong? Crown Prince Gong was younger than Yu Yao and he was raised by Princess Gong to be a real bully. He was instilled with the idea that he was the imperial grandson so he could have anything he wanted. Now he was like this, but his mother not only didn't help him vent his anger, but also asked him to apologize. He couldn't calm down, so he straightened his neck and said, "Why should I apologize? I've always been a beast, so what if I snatch something? She's an elder. Shouldn't she give it to me?" Princess Gong was really angry with her son at this moment. Of course, in her opinion, she didn't think her son was wrong. You bastard, apologize when I ask you. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Crown Prince Gong's eyes were red. Mother, you help an outsider instead of me. I hate you. After that, he ran away. Princess Gong scolded bastard, but in the face of Great Elder Princess's cold and sarcastic expression, she unconsciously lowered her head. Aunt, I don't deserve it. And Aunt, don't be angry. I'll apologize to cousin on behalf of that evil creature, don't you think so? Yao, your nephew is still young and doesn't know anything. Can you forgive him this time? If you like little tigers, I'll ask your fourth cousin to find you 8 or 10. You can play with them however you want. What do you think? After hearing her words, Yu Yao smiled sarcastically like Great Elder Princess. Fourth cousin-in-law, do you think I'm a fool? Forgive him. Okay, I don't want anything else. Leave those 8 or 10 for your son to play with. I just want this one. If you let it live, I won't care about it. Princess Gong was choked by a little girl and couldn't say anything. Yu Yao snorted and then looked at Great Elder Princess and Jing. Mother, cousin-in-law, I'm going to freshen up. Then she left silently with the body of the little tiger. The servants hurriedly followed, and the maid of Jin Qinhuang mansion hurriedly led the way. Foster mother, I'm also responsible for this. Okay, it's none of your business. Don't take everything on yourself. Even if you can't be as shameless as some people who can't wait to push all the mistakes to others or find excuses to cover up, at least don't foolishly take the responsibility that you shouldn't take. Great Elder Princess coldly reprimanded Jingwan. Foster mother, you're right. I'll remember it. Jingwan listened obediently. Okay, go do your business. Jingwan and Great Elder Princess left one after the other, leaving Princess Gong standing there alone. In the eyes of the children, the people who saw this good show were still pure and innocent. Only those few who were worried about the children or came to slack off couldn't help but whisper to each other in twos and threes, using their handkerchiefs to cover their mouths, as if they were deliberately trying to hide something. Being laughed at by such a group of sluts, the Gong Qin Wangfei only wanted to tear them apart, but in the end she could only endure, acting as if she didn't know anything in order to protect her dignity. If what Great Elder Princess said today was spread out, her reputation would really be tarnished. Compared with this, how could she explain it to her husband and father? Her son and grandson were not good. It must be because she, as a mother, didn't teach them well. No matter how many servants she used to pay for the crime, she couldn't shirk the responsibility. As expected, the bitch Luo was born to be her nemesis. Every time something happened, it was related to her. Princess Gong really hated her in her heart, but she was deeply powerless because she couldn't take revenge at all. Because of Jingwan's incitement, the child's elders quickly knew about this matter. Previously, when they didn't know the specific situation, the child talked about it after Jingwan and the others left, but they didn't expect that their family was also involved. It was simply a ruthless slap to the face. They really hated Gong Qin Wangfei to death. How did she teach her son? Not only did she herself make a stupid mistake, she also implicated their family's child. Fortunately, their family's darling was fine. She didn't look at the situation she was in now. She didn't know when to advance or retreat. Just wait and see, sooner or later she would fall hard and never be able to climb back up. As for the children of the Luo family, the adults led by old Madame Luo didn't say anything. In fact, not saying anything was already equivalent to thinking that they didn't do anything wrong. They who were originally a little nervous looked at each other, understood tacitly and tiptoed back to play. When it's time to make a move, you can make a move, but you must learn to protect yourself. Don't be reckless. The sneaky children stared blankly for a moment, then reacted. Understood, grandmother. They responded loudly. It must be said that this matter wasn't small, and soon everyone in the front yard knew about it. Li Hongyuan's gaze lightly fell on the Gong Prince. The Gong Prince couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Sixth brother, this is your fault. Since you brought it back, there must be more than one. Why don't you release them all? Everyone has one, so there's no need to snatch one. Was this the preemptive strike? https://11/1180711837/10374442. Chapter 463. What you mean is, the younger generation snatches the elders' things, the boy snatches the girls' things. If you can't get it, destroy it. These are all correct, right? This is called teaching by example. Could it be that fourth imperial brother is such a person? Li Hongyuan propped up his chin. This is interesting. Imperial father advocates benevolence, but fourth imperial brother's ideas are completely different from imperial father's. I wonder if imperial father would be angry if he knew? Li Hongyuan's mouth. There weren't many people present who hadn't experienced it before. He didn't say much, but it was too poisonous, the kind that could take someone's life. Just like now, if it reached Lu Qingdi's ears, the Gong Prince would most likely eat his head. The Gong Prince suppressed his anger because he had learned too many lessons. If he really lost his mind in anger, the end would only be worse, so he repeatedly reminded himself to calm down, calm down, calm down. Sixth imperial brother, as the saying goes, things can be eaten indiscriminately. These words can't be spoken carelessly. In the end, I'm still your elder brother. Slandering me like this, I'm afraid it's not appropriate. Fourth imperial brother's words are wrong. This prince has never eaten indiscriminately. After all, since childhood, this prince has always been picky. This is not good, this is not good, this is not good. This has always been said carelessly. Right and wrong are reversed, black and white are more interesting. So, fourth imperial brother, there are some words you can't say carelessly, especially in front of this prince. The Gong prince pulled the corner of his mouth. Now he was a bit regretful. Originally, the matter his son caused had nothing to do with Jin Qinhuang Fu, but when he thought about the possibility of facing imperial father's punishment, he subconsciously wanted to escape the crime. It had become a habit. He didn't even think about it before blurting it out. Provoking Li Hongyuan, there was no possibility of escaping the crime, but one more crime was 9 out of 10 times. The Gong prince even wanted to slap himself twice. Yu Yao is our younger cousin. She has quite a few nephews and nieces. So many people didn't fight with her. Only your son didn't show any respect to his elders. Fourth imperial brother also has the nerve to push the blame onto this prince. However, since fourth imperial brother said so, there is one thing you should know: this prince's things, this prince can give them to whoever he wants. If he wants to take them out without this prince's permission, don't try. Even so, this prince wants to see who dares to criticize this prince. Sixth brother, if you ask me, maybe it's because you have too many good things in your residence and fourth brother is envious. Since he can share cats and dogs, maybe he expects you to share other things as well. When it came to matters related to Li Hongyuan, the others had already learned to be smart. Even if the person he dissed was actually their sworn enemy, it was best not to get involved easily. This was because they might not be able to trick their sworn enemy, and they might even bury themselves. Therefore, when it came to this kind of matter, everyone had a tacit understanding to just watch. Now that someone actually interfered, they couldn't help but look over at the same time. 11 was really a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. The 11th prince was 15 and wouldn't leave the palace until next year. There was a big age gap between him and Li Hongyuan. Although he knew of Li Hongyuan's fame, in fact, Li Hongyuan had never done anything to these younger brothers. No matter how you looked at it, these younger brothers were the same person, his father's sons, nothing more. Li Hongyuan glanced at him, and when the others thought he was going to flip out, he just calmly withdrew his gaze. This was not what he had expected. The Gong prince had hoped that the other side would share the firepower, but this time, Li Hongyuan didn't play his cards as expected. He couldn't do anything to Li Hongyuan, but he couldn't do anything to him? The Gong prince's eyes flew over like daggers. 11. If you don't have your sixth brother's life, don't learn from him so easily, it's not good. The 11th prince was threatened, but he just shrugged his shoulders indifferently. This younger brother has always been self-aware. I'm not learning from sixth brother, I'm just saying what I think. If fourth brother thinks there's no such thing, then just don't admit it. It's simple. Why should I care? Thinking too much and worrying too much, it's easy to shorten one's lifespan. How to put it, they seem to have a whole new level of respect for this younger brother. Today he must have eaten the wrong medicine, daring to diss his own powerful older brother. People like him were the ones who truly had no power, no influence and no favor, a little transparent. These adult princes simply didn't bother to pay attention to him, and even if he was an adult, they still had to see what his wife's family was like before they decided what to do next. Now this little transparent didn't want to be a little transparent anymore. Jumping out to make his presence known before? Wasn't he afraid of breaking himself? After all, he was a prince. Compared to many people, even if he was inferior, he was still somewhat inferior. As long as he knew his place, just like the sickly fifth prince, in the future whichever brother ascended the throne, for the sake of reputation he could continue to live a comfortable life, just like the current Gong prince. The 11th prince was just a pervert. A few years ago he had already started eating meat. This originally wasn't a big deal. But now he recklessly jumped out. He was afraid that in the future he wouldn't have the chance to continue hugging a beauty. No matter what the reason was, in short, Li Hongyuan wasn't interested. Of course, if one day this younger brother suddenly rose up and reluctantly became an opponent, Li Hongyuan would probably give him a look. However, even if he rose up now, he was afraid that there was no time. The current chaotic situation was bound to end within 2 years. This prince is in a good mood today. I don't want to care about any trivial matters. Don't come looking for this prince. When everyone heard this, they immediately understood that Li Hongyuan was no longer pursuing the matter. Some people were regretful, but only the Gong prince rejoiced. It's just that with a fixed mindset he believed that Li Hongyuan only liked to deal with things now, and didn't like to settle things after the autumn. Therefore many times he was tricked. No matter what kind of person he was, he would often choose the wrong target. Those who truly understood Li Hongyuan knew that his heart was smaller than the tip of a needle, and secretly plotting against people was his specialty. Therefore the Gong Prince really rejoiced too early. Think about it, if your son killed the birthday present he sent people to find for his wife, regardless of whether his wife had already given the present away or not, would you be able to easily get away without paying any price? You're really dreaming. The reason why he didn't deal with it now was still that sentence, because of Jingwan. Because of Jingwan's birthday he wanted to make it perfect. If in the end it was ruined because of him, even if Jingwan didn't say anything he himself would be depressed. After that, in order to not provoke the King of Hell, everyone was quite well behaved, and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. The Gong Prince sat for a moment thinking about his Wang Fei's temperament. In the end he couldn't sit still. He didn't want to make another stupid mistake because of Qin Shi, and be blamed by Li Hongyuan on him. Husband and wife as one? What did the wife do wrong that it was the husband's fault? That was all nonsense. The Gong Prince only knew that when disaster strikes, everyone flies away. Although it wasn't to this extent now, but if something really happened he didn't mind pushing his wife out. After searching he found that his Wang Fei really had left the Jin Prince mansion. The Gong Prince's teeth itched with hatred. This slut who can't do anything right. If it was in the past, the Gong Prince was holding the Gong Prince in his hand afraid to fall, holding the Gong Prince in his mouth afraid to melt. The Gong Qin Wang Fei was insolent both inside and outside the mansion. She punished the Gong Prince's concubine, but the Gong Prince had to coax her with kind words. That was because his father-in-law held military power. If he wanted to rise to the throne, he absolutely couldn't do without his father-in-law's support. It was just that he lowered himself and tried to curry favor everywhere. However, this father and daughter pair really dared to ride on his head, bossing him around. Because of a small matter, Qin Tianming was cold to him, he was doomed to fail, so why should he lower himself? The Gong Prince lost his patience with Qin Shi, so Qin Shi naturally suffered. However, Qin Tianming was still standing there, and he hadn't completely fallen out with the Gong Prince. Even if the Gong Prince didn't give Qin Shi face, he still had some misgivings. The Gong Prince rushed back to the Gong Prince mansion, but there was no one there. The Gong Prince thought for a moment, then turned around and went to the Champion Marquis mansion. Coincidentally, because Qin Tianming's wife had some typhoid and wasn't feeling well, she didn't go to the Jin Prince mansion today to avoid bad luck. As a result, her grandson, who was supposed to be at the Jin Prince mansion, came back with her daughter. Her grandson was in a sorry state, covered with injuries and crying. Madame Qin still loved her grandson very much, so she hurriedly asked what was going on. The Gong Qin Wang Fei came in and comforted her son with kind words, promising many benefits, before letting a maid take him to freshen up. When her daughter was talking, Madame Qin chose to stand on the sidelines. Madame Qin didn't agree with the way her daughter raised the child, but her daughter didn't take it seriously at all, saying something like she only had this one son, and her son was the emperor's grandson, the heir of the Gong Prince mansion. In the future he might be. She didn't care what he did. Listen to what she was saying, it really made her liver hurt. She really thought she was the emperor, but one day she kicked an iron plate, then she would know how powerful she was. Over time it was hard for her to control her. Now she heard that she had provoked great elder princess, but she still dared to say to her son that it was his fault. If she was really so capable, she shouldn't have come to the Marquis of Champion's mansion in a fit of anger. Madame Qin really wanted to slap her to death and tell her to get as far away as possible, so as not to implicate the Marquis of Champion's mansion. Of course, Madame Qin didn't care about the Marquis of Champion's mansion, but her branch. Anyway, although her branch lived in the Marquis of Champion's mansion, her husband and father-in-law didn't get along well. When the heir of the Gong Prince was taken away, the Gong Qin Wang Fei began to vent to her mother in all kinds of ways, blaming great elder princess and Jin Wang Fei. In short, except for her, everyone else was wrong. As long as they didn't obey her, they were wrong. Although it was not organized, Madame Qin roughly understood the cause and effect. She was so angry that the blue veins on her forehead stood out. Shut up. Why did she give birth to such a thing, huh? She didn't have a filter and dared to say anything. If you have the ability, you can say these words in front of the emperor. Father will definitely be unreasonable and help them. Madame Qin was so angry that she slapped her in the face. Who gave you the courage even daring to talk about the emperor? She was stunned by her mother's slap, but when she heard her mother's words she dared to be angry but didn't dare to say anything. There's only the two of us here, other people can't hear. Moreover, mother, I'm the Gong Qin Wangfei, how can you hit me? This is offending your superiors. Madame Qin covered her chest and almost vomited blood. Okay, you're noble now, I, as your mother, can't even touch a finger of yours. The Marquis of Champion's mansion is small, it can't accommodate a big Buddha like you. Asking the Gong Qin Wangfei to take the air and leave immediately and don't come back in the future. The Gong Qin Wangfei also realized that she said something wrong and didn't say anything. After a moment she said, Mother, don't be angry, I also didn't choose my words carefully. Besides, if I go out with a slap on my face, how can I meet people? You've already lost all your face, what face do you still have to meet people? The Gong Qin Wangfei lifted the curtain and strode in. Wangye. In front of the Gong Qin Wangfei, the Gong Qin Wangfei had long been unable to be arrogant. She subconsciously knew that she had done something wrong today, so she took 2 steps back in fear. Why are you here? Madame Qin wasn't surprised at all. Greetings to Wangye. Mother-in-law, please dispense with the formalities. The Gong Qin Wangfei gestured with his hand. Wangye is here to pick up the Wangfei and heir? If she dared to say no, then she didn't need to think about the emperor's throne. She should be more straightforward, hand over the task at hand and go home to take care of the child. Yes, 6th sister-in-law's first birthday after marrying into the imperial family, it's not good to be absent. That bastard boy knew that you weren't feeling well, so he came to see you. He was originally filial. If he was criticized, then it wouldn't be good, don't you think so? Lying with a straight face, this was the Gong Qin Wangfei's style. However, many people had this skill, so it didn't matter. He didn't see Madame Qin's expression change, she even nodded as if it was a matter of course. That's right, Wangye should take the Wangfei and heir and hurry over. The Gong Qin Wangfei nodded. That bastard boy, where did he go? Logically speaking, it was just washing up and changing clothes. It wasn't a bath, how long could it take? The Gong Qin Wangfei turned and went out, personally looking for him. Wangye. The Gong Qin Wangfei hurriedly followed him out, afraid that the Gong Qin Wangfei would hit her son in a fit of anger. The Gong Qin Wangfei was really playing with the 2 children. What happened in Jin Wangfu seemed to have been forgotten beyond the highest heavens. He didn't see his father but a certain child at that moment, his face turned white with fright. The Gong Qin Wangfei also turned his head. He dared to make a scene in front of his mother, but was very afraid of his father. The lawless little overlord at this moment shrank back like a quail. Fu, Father King. The Gong Qin Wangfei expressionlessly looked at him for a moment, then his cold eyes fell on the Gong Qin Wangfei. He coldly snorted, flicked his sleeves and left. The Gong Qin Wangfei hurriedly pulled her son and followed. Although she was unwilling, she didn't dare to say anything. Mufei, where are we going? The Gong Qin Wangfei pulled his mother's sleeve. Jin Wangfu. I'm not going. He immediately exploded, unwilling to leave. The Gong Qin Wangfei hurriedly covered his mouth. You dead child, what are you talking about? Unfortunately, it was already too late. The Gong Qin Wangfei had already heard and turned around, because they were already out of the champion Marquis Fu's gate. His mood was no longer restrained, his face gloomy as if he wanted to eat people. The Gong Qin Wangfei was so scared that he hid behind his mother. The Gong Qin Wangfei protected her son. Just as she was about to say something, the Gong Qin Wangfei vigorously pushed her away, grabbing her son's shoulder. Not going? Benwang can send someone to send you back, but from now on you're not allowed to take half a step out of the Gong Qin Wangfu. Benwang will also write a memorial to your imperial grandfather, using your illness as an excuse to revoke your Wangfei status. What do you think? Now tell Benwang, are you going or not? Even if he was still young, he clearly knew what the Wangfei status meant to him, but right now his father was too terrifying. He was scared, silly, unable to make any response. The Gong Qin Wangfei wasn't the only one who was scared. The Gong Qin Wangfei was the same. She couldn't care less. She rushed over and grabbed the Gong Qin Wangfei's arm. Wangye, how can you do that? You can't do that. The Gong Qin Wangfei shook her off, backhanded her. The Gong Qin Wangfei retreated a step, then fell directly to the ground, looking at the Gong Qin Wangfei in disbelief. Although it wasn't the first time he hit her, but right now they were at the gate of the champion Marquis Fu. This slap wasn't just hitting her face, it was also hitting her father's face. How could he dare? The Gong Qin Wangfei was condescending. Can't? Why can't I? If Benwang really did that, then it's all thanks to you, a good son. Look at what you've taught him. Hitting his elders, bullying a girl, is this what you taught him? If you can't get it, you'll destroy it. Is this your idea? How much ability do you have? How much face do you have? Because of you, because of this evil creature, Ben Wang lost face in front of all the brothers and officials. And you offended the great elder princess. Not only did you not want to apologize, you even dared to bring this disgraceful thing back to your mother's house. What, you did something wrong and you still feel wronged? The Gongqin Wangfei's lips trembled, but she couldn't say anything. If she dared to defend herself, she was afraid she wouldn't have a good ending. The Gongqin Wangfei's gaze fell on his son. You remember, if your position as Wangfei is really gone, then everything will be your Wangfei's fault. After today's banquet, I'll give you two choices. Move to the front yard, study hard with your teacher without Ben Wang's permission. You're not allowed to see your Wangfei, or you can follow your Wangfei for the rest of your life. After the Gongqin Wangfei finished speaking, he looked meaningfully at the gate of the Champion Marquis residence. Humph, with a flick of his sleeve, he turned and got into the carriage. The Gongqin Wangfei was in a daze. There was a palm print on both sides of her face. But the Gongqin Wangfei's hand was much heavier than Madame Qin's, so there was no symmetry. She didn't understand why it was like this. Why was it all her fault in the end? The Gongqin Wangfei's gaze inadvertently fell on her son, but what she saw was the alienation, vigilance, and even a faint hatred in her son's eyes. She did everything for her son, but her son was so easily instigated for his own benefit. He didn't hesitate to abandon her, his own mother. He was just a little white-eyed wolf. The Gongqin Wangfei stretched out her hand, as if she was making a final attempt to persuade him to stay. However, her good son's mouth twitched and he ran towards his Wangfei's carriage with a thump thump thump. Her heart turned cold, but it only lasted for a moment. The Gongqin Wangfei looked at his careful son in front of him, and then looked at Qin Shi through the window, his eyes cold. Still not leaving? Are you waiting for Ben Wang to invite you? The Gongqin Wangfei slowly got up. The maid serving her wanted to help her, but she shook her off. Madame Qin heard from the maid what happened outside the gate, closed her eyes, took off the prayer beads on her wrist and quickly turned them. She was very clear the Gongqin Wangfei was just acting for her husband to see. Because of her husband's indifference to him, he was telling them that he had lost his patience. Madame Qin thought of her own daughter. In the end, she was her own flesh. How could she not feel distressed? Speaking of which, her original temperament was not bad and she could be considered smart, but in the past few years she had been spoiled by the Gongqin Wangfei, and she really thought that the Gongqin Wangfei was doing it for her, so she forgot herself, lost her original heart and became more and more unsightly. The Gongqin Wangfei was in the carriage and the maid helped her put on makeup to cover the red marks on her face, but no matter how much the foundation covered it, it couldn't cover the swelling. Returning to Jin Qinhuang mansion, the Gongqin Wangfei took his wife and children to apologize to Great Elder Princess, looking very sincere. He had no choice. Compared with Madame Qin, he knew this aunt better, and it was better not to play tricks in front of her. If he annoyed her again and again, he would definitely suffer. As for the Gongqin Wangfei, no one knew what his father said to him, but when he apologized to Yu Yao, he looked very sincere, completely different from his previous arrogant appearance. Many people were surprised. They didn't know that the Gongqin Wangfei taught his son so well, but whether it was true praise or mockery, only they knew in their hearts. In the end, Great Elder Princess didn't insist. After all, according to some people's meaning, if she didn't forgive them, they would be prepared to sincerely apologize, and when the time came, it would be her fault. Great Elder Princess sneered in her heart. If she wanted to punish someone, did she have to go through her brother? She had been living behind closed doors. Did she really have no connections at all? Well, do what you need to do. As a man, how can you hide among women? Yes, aunt, you're right. I'll take my leave. Since he had achieved his goal, the Gongqin Wangfei left quickly. The Gongqin Wangfei, who stayed, became the object of everyone's discussion. However, the Gongqin Wangfei was like a piece of wood at this moment. In the eyes of Great Elder Princess, she despised people like the Gongqin Wangfei, who acted as if the sky was falling and the earth was collapsing, and she was even more disgusted by her than her previous arrogance. In contrast, the concubine of Prince Kang was more pleasing to her eyes. Although Prince Kang's second son was an accomplice, Great Elder Princess didn't blame the concubine. After all, she was not the legal mother and the child was not born by her, so it was indeed not her place to take care of him. Moreover, it was rare that she was a smart person who saw through things thoroughly. As time went by, more and more officials arrived, and then a group of people were frightened by the living king of hell. When it was almost time, the banquet began. In fact, most people were satisfied with this banquet. Even the reserved female guests basically didn't eat any dishes that hadn't been touched. It couldn't be helped that the dishes were really good in color, smell, and taste. The smell uncontrollably went into people's noses and aroused their appetite. No matter how reserved they were, they still ate several times. They sighed in their hearts that this was what a banquet should be like. However, the chef of Prince Jin's mansion was really good. The ingredients used in each dish were the best. Although they belonged to the top circle of the whole Qiyuan, they hadn't eaten some of the dishes on the table. Of course, they were embarrassed to say that because it was shameful. Of course, there were still some people who didn't eat much, including Jingwan. Because the bowl of longevity noodles before the banquet was so delicious that Jingwan was 80% full at that time. Later, many people proposed a toast to her. Jingwan didn't drink much, so her alcohol tolerance was naturally low. Halfway through the banquet, she was basically drunk. Most of the older noblewomen were more considerate and let her rest. Of course, not everyone had good intentions. The younger ones raised their wine cups and laughed like flowers trembling. How could the birthday girl leave halfway? How was it unkind to pretend to be drunk? The older ones nodded their heads in agreement. It must be said that these people didn't bully Jingwan because she was young and thin-skinned, so most of them would endure. Unfortunately, Prince Jin's appearance at the female guests' table really surprised many people. However, Li Hongyuan didn't look sideways. He ignored people who paid their respects and directly walked to Jingwan's side. He reached out and stroked her hair. Drunk? Whether it was his actions or his expression, they all hid a tenderness that couldn't be dissolved. Wang Ye. Jingwan got up but couldn't stand. Li Hongyuan hurriedly reached out to help her. I'll take you to rest. Without any explanation, he carried Jingwan up horizontally. With a little force, he suppressed Jingwan's struggle and stopped at Luo Laofeng's table. After that, I'll have to trouble Laofeng to help take care of everyone. When Jingwan wakes up, she will apologize to everyone. Who is the living king of hell? Let his king of hell's consort come out to apologize? Looking at how precious she was now, if she really chirped in the future and expressed her dissatisfaction with Jin Wangfei, he would be displeased. If he was displeased, the womenfolk present might not do anything, but their fathers, husbands, or sons might be in trouble. So, these words, it was fine to just listen to it. Each and every one of them hurriedly said that they didn't dare and let him quickly send Jingwan to rest. Because of this, until the end of the banquet, there were still some unmarried young ladies and even young married women who were absent-minded. The notoriety of the living king of hell was well known to men, women, old and young in the entire capital. However, those who had truly eaten his methods were actually only a small portion of people. It was basically concentrated on those brothers of his and those courtiers who always wanted to make things difficult for him. The other people, especially the womenfolk of the noble houses, only knew about him through rumors. As the saying goes, public opinion can melt gold and accumulation can destroy the bones. After the exaggerated and erroneous rumors, coupled with Li Hongyuan's intentional actions, it was basically people who heard about the living king of hell. Even if on some occasions if they accidentally met him they would avoid him from afar. Or if they fancied his appearance, they would also be dissuaded by others and then rationally choose to give up. However, seeing the scene of Jin Qin Wangfei treating Jin Qin Wangfei, how could they remain indifferent? Especially those who had actually thought about Jin Qin Wangfei and were now married but didn't live as they wished. It turned out that Jin Qin Wang was actually so gentle and considerate. It turned out that Jin Qin Wang wasn't scary at all. It turned out that even if Jin Qin Wang didn't treat other people well, he treated his own Wangfei completely differently. Why couldn't they become his Wangfei? It must be known that Jin Qin Wang had started to choose his concubines many years ago. If they didn't listen to those rumors, how could they miss such a man? If they didn't listen to those rumors, how could Jin Qin Wang be taken away by a woman outside the capital? They didn't think that Jin Qin Wang was acting because Jin Qin Wang didn't need to act for anyone to see. Even if he was acting, no man would do it to this extent. Their intestines turned green and coupled with jealousy corroding their hearts, how many people unconsciously tore their handkerchiefs? In contrast, some unmarried young ladies were eager to move. Jin Qin Wang didn't even have a single tsefei, let alone a concubine. They didn't need to worry about Jin Qin Wang's cruelty and might even be able to obtain his favor. Coupled with the monstrous riches and honor of Jin Qin Wang Fu, what could compare to this taste? Even if Jin Qin Wang Fei was a jealous woman, as long as Jin Qin Wang protected her, What else was there to worry about? A group of old noblewomen could see it clearly. Some were disdainful, some were indifferent, and some lamented. Evil creatures, evil creatures, each and every one of them was bewitched. If they continued to indulge like this, no matter if they were married or not, they wouldn't have a good life. Married, if they always fantasized about Jin Qinhuang's gentleness and ignored everything else, or if their husband knew about it, would they want to enter the family temple, or would they want to be divorced? Unmarried, if they always wanted to choose a husband based on Jin Qinhuang, would they still want to marry? Each and every one of their hearts are higher than the sky, but I'm afraid that their lives are thinner than paper. Who was great elder princess? Her words were not polite at all. Who do you think you are? Do you really think that you can be a Qinhuang Fei with any identity? Even if Jin Qinhuang is a jinx to his wife, it's not because he lowered his status and married any woman. As the saying goes, different people have different lives. Even if you marry into Jin Qinhuang mansion, you may not have the luck of being a Qinhuang Fei. Instead of living a good life, you think about those things all day long. You deserve it if you don't live a good life. The surrounding noblewomen didn't answer. They were all used to leaving some leeway in everything, so they wouldn't say anything to offend Great Elder Princess. However, they all knew that Great Elder Princess was right. They were all experienced people and had seen everything. It should be known that although Luo Peishan was a first-class official, Jingwan was not the legitimate daughter of the eldest son's family. Besides, her father was completely incompetent, so she couldn't be a Qinhuang Fei. It was better to recognize Great Elder Princess as her adoptive mother to raise her status. Even if Li Qingdi was crazy about his sixth son's marriage, he would not lower his standards too much. Besides, even if Great Elder Princess wanted to adopt a daughter, she wouldn't do it casually. Even if it was Li Qingdi's idea, it had to depend on Great Elder Princess's own wishes. Even if her status was high enough, as the saying went, different people have different lives. What was more, the King of Hell only chose that one person and no one else could be chosen. Therefore, those who even blamed Jingwan were really unreasonable. Great Elder Princess, you don't have to care about this. In addition to luck in good or bad life, people still have to rely on themselves. Madame Luo said with a smile. Great Elder Princess nodded and said, "You're right, madam. However, that evil creature is also a source of trouble. Even if he loves his wife dearly, he can send his people here and then ask the maids to send her back. Why does he have to go there by himself? It's normal for young people to be impulsive occasionally and forget other things when they're in love. Everyone has been like this, so there's no need to worry too much about it." An old princess said with a smile. "You're right." Great Elder Princess nodded. Mammy Gong stepped forward at the right time and said, "Madam, the theater is ready. Do you want to go there now?" Since Prince Jean had entrusted Madame Luo, he naturally asked for her opinion at this time. Madame Luo asked for the opinions of others, so they all moved to the seats. The opera troupe of Prince Jin's mansion was raised by himself, so it was naturally different from the ones outside. Instead of watching the play together, the male and female seats were directly divided into two parts. The men watched the male opera troupe and the women watched the female opera troupe. For many people, it was the first time for them to watch a play in such a way, which was quite novel. After all, it was common for male singers to sing Hua Dan, but it was more difficult for female singers to sing Wu Sheng. It didn't matter to the female guests, but in the male guest seats, some people were eager to watch a pure female performance. Li Hongyuan was also generous. They could exchange the second half of the performance. However, those who had evil thoughts were destined to fail. After all, Jingwan had already sent away the performers who were willing to leave. As for the rest, as long as they didn't have any evil thoughts, Jingwan would naturally protect them. For such a trivial matter, the King of Hell had always been obedient to his wife. Asking the King of Hell to take a woman from him. In the two neighboring courtyards, there were endless sounds of babbling, and from time to time, there were cheers and applause. However, in the female guest seats, there were always girls who couldn't sit still. For various reasons, they wanted to go out for a walk and exercise, and the place to exercise was the courtyard of the male guest seats. What are they doing? Their thoughts are clearly written on their faces. Shameless. Yuan Qiao sat beside Sun Yijia and said indignantly, "Why do you care about them? Anyway, at most they are just thinking about it. Can a toad eat swan meat?" Sun Yijia didn't take it seriously, but the words that came out of her mouth were also poisonous. Although she didn't like Li Hongyuan, It didn't mean that she was willing to let other women covet her sister-in-law's husband. Yuan Xiaoqiao burst into laughter. In fact, the Luo family's thoughts were similar to theirs. They didn't have a grudge against her grand-aunt, so they naturally wanted her to be well. In the end, it was great elder princess who didn't like her and wanted to steal her goddaughter's husband? We're family. Watch out for yourselves. Don't do anything shameful. As an elder, it was shameful to have such a girl in the family. However, the girls basically gathered together at a certain distance, so it was difficult to control them. What was more, they were afraid that they would make a big noise, which would be even more embarrassing. Now that great elder princess had exposed them, they really wanted to bring back their evil girl and strangle her to death. Fortunately, only a few of them really did so, and most of them were still rational. Great elder princess, His Highness has been in the main courtyard for an hour. Nanny Gong, who was guarding by the side, said softly. Well, the prince had long been gone. Those who tried to meet him by chance were in vain. Jingwan was sent back to the main courtyard by Li Hongyuan. At that time she vomited so much that a lot of filth was vomited on Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan frowned. Compared with the discomfort caused by the filth, he cared more about Jingwan. He quickly cleaned up and took care of Jingwan in person until she drank the hangover soup and fell asleep. At this moment Jingwan was almost asleep and sober. Li Hongyuan happened to go to see her, so she hugged Li Hongyuan tightly and didn't want to let go. Jingwan couldn't be blamed for being so clingy. Although she was drunk, she didn't drink too much. She could still remember everything. Li Hongyuan had gone to this extent for her, so how could she not be happy? Not to mention the era of male chauvinism, even in her previous life, there weren't many men who could go to this extent. Even if her heart was as firm as a rock, it was difficult for her not to love him. Li Hongyuan also held her in his arms and gently rubbed her temples. Still uncomfortable? Jingwan shook her head. Yuan is here. I don't feel uncomfortable. She was now as if she had been filled with honey. Li Hongyuan gently knocked on her forehead. It's useless to say nice things. You're still a stupid person. If you can't drink, then don't drink. Drinking is already giving face. Do those people dare to have any objections? Only you are so stupid to drink it. Most of them are elders. Jingwan was scolded, but she wasn't angry. So what if they are elders? Jingwan was helpless. You can ignore them, but I can't. When the time comes, the gossip will not only target me. Li Hongyuan kissed her forehead. It's been hard on you. One day, anyone in front of you can only do things according to your mood. It's natural not to do things that you don't want to do. Giving them a smile is a gift. Jingwan smiled. Why did this domineering style feel a little chunibu? What was there to feel wronged about? I know. Oh wait. It was a little perfunctory. When that day really came, Jingwan wouldn't be like this. It wasn't that she couldn't, but it was just the most ordinary of getting along well. There was no need for so many twists and turns. I've rested enough. Let's go to the theater. There are only 2 of us in the prince's mansion. We can't be absent all the time. It doesn't matter. Jingwan was helpless again. Here it comes again. Let's go. I want to watch the show. https://11/11807/10541560. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.